while I was out delivering food. I overheard two little squirrels chattering about, a massive stash of treats nearby. Dirt poor and starving, I found myself following them like a possessed soul, watching those tiny squirrels stuffing their faces in such a hilarious and adorable way. I couldn't help but let out a soft unintentional giggle, but the moment my eyes flickered toward a pair of canvas sneakers and white shoes nearby, my smile instantly frozen in place. I stiffly tilted my head upward, only to lock eyes with a pair of blood-red pupils. Before long, officers from the local police station swarmed the scene. Nanpunian immediately spotted me sitting alone on the steps of the factory's back entrance. As Nanpunian approached, he caught the faint sound of my detached whispering. The face shows signs of cyanosis. Yusanshikis. Petechial hemorrhaging in the eyelid conjunctiva. That's it. The bruising on the neck is deep purple red. Also. Initial judgment suggests death by mechanical asphyxiation. Time of death, approximately 6 hours ago. Nanpunian raised an eyebrow. You actually know how to perform an autopsy. I'm into suspense novels, so I've picked up a few things. Nanpunian noted my eerie excessive calmness, and couldn't help but harbor certain suspicions. Hello, I'm Nanpunian Ig, from the Qingshan District Criminal Investigation Squad. Regarding the current case, there are a few details I need to further confirm with you. Would you mind coming down to the station with us? A look of hesitation crossed my face. I looked up at Nanpunian. Once we're done with the questions, can I spend the night at the station Ikutia? My dorm has a midnight curfew, and I'm broke. Nanpunian stared stunned, before breaking into a dry, ironic laugh. As a trade-off, I'll personally cover your food and lodging for the night. I gave a simple nod. Fine. Let's go. Inside the interrogation room, I sat bolted to the chair. Opposite me stood Nanpunian, and a grim-faced recorder clad in a police uniform. The atmosphere was thick with overwhelming pressure. Miss Len, according to our investigation, you clicked delivered on your final order. At exactly 9:48 p.m., the drop-off point was barely a kilometer from that factory. Yet you didn't call the police until 10:32. Tell me during that gap of time, what was a girl like you doing entering a strictly restricted, closed-off factory like that? Unfazed and deliberate, I calmly delivered the cover story I had meticulously prepared. Why so late? Because work shifts run late, and I just wanted a moment of my own. Why enter the factory? Because I spotted a pair of squirrels, thought they were adorable, and instinctively followed them. Every single one of my answers? Perfectly aligned with my tracked GPS path. Most crucially, Shu Yuli sent over the preliminary autopsy results. Upon scanning the report, Nanpunian shot an involuntary glance toward me. My guess had been disturbingly accurate. Wang Yuxin had been dead for roughly 6 hours, and exactly 6 hours ago, I was clear across another district delivering food. I didn't have a single second of opportunity to commit the crime. Furthermore, according to Shu Yuli's professional judgment, there was a high probability that Wang Yuxin had committed suicide. Once the formal interrogation concluded, Nanpunian personally escorted me to the squad entrance. Let's exchange contacts on WeChat. I've already booked a hotel room for you. I'll send you the screenshot of the confirmation in a bit. Sounds good. Without a hint of hesitation, I pulled out my phone to add him. Glancing at the booking details Nanpunian sent, I couldn't help but raise a curious eyebrow. A 5-star luxury hotel. A standard room there costs $560. More than I make in an entire day of grinding deliveries. I swear I'm ready to start an uprising against the rich. Hey, Nanpunian! He paused mid-stride, turning back to face me. I looked him in the eye. I noticed the police reward for leads and finding a body comes with a $10,000 bounty. Nanpunian froze for a second, as if he'd completely forgotten that bounty even existed. He broke into a dry, amused laugh. Right, I'll submit the approval paperwork today. Just send me your bank details later. If all goes smoothly, you should see that post-tax reward in your account within 2 days. Excellent, thanks Nan. Thinking about that sudden windfall of over 8,000 big ones, I felt the grueling exhaustion of the day vanish instantly. Don't mention it, Nanpunian replied, seemingly caught up in my mood, finally flashing his very first genuine smile of the day, but in a heartbeat, as a specific name flickered across his glowing screen. His gaze darkened. It was a call from Wang Yuxin's mother. Sensing the heavy shift in Nanpunian's energy, I tactfully took my leave. Nanpunian clearly wasn't in the mood for small talk anymore. They had finally located Wang Yuxin, yet the discovery only unearthed a mountain of unanswered questions. Mainly, what could have driven her to end it all. The moment I stepped into my hotel suite, I tossed the day's grim event into the back of my mind. I scrubbed off the day in the shower, and by the time I finished drying my hair, it was already 3 a.m. My body was a lead weight on the bed, but my mind was buzzing with restless adrenaline. I reached for my phone to kill some time. Inevitably, the top trending topic was the missing person case of the city, specifically the tragic update on Wang Yuxin. Just 30 minutes prior, the local police department had released a formal bulletin. The body had been recovered, and the specific details were still under active investigation. The second the announcement went live, it detonated like a bomb across the internet. Conspiracy theories, Whispers of murder and dark speculation began to spiral wildly. Wang Yuxin's messy family dynamics were dragged into the spotlight. It turned out her parents had secretly finalized a divorce 3 long years ago, hiding it entirely from her. To make matters worse, both had already moved on to start new families. Netizens began to theorize obsessively. Did Wang Yuxin finally discover the truth and find it unbearable? Was that the catalyst for her decision to... The count on that specific theory was skyrocketing. Below it, one of Wang Yuxin's own classmates had chimed in, describing her as a gentle soul with a heart of pure gold. In the ginkgo grove behind Hangcheng First High, many little squirrels made their homes. Wang Yuxin always carried pine nuts in her bag, heading to the back gate after class just to feed them. My thumb froze mid-scroll as I read those words. I thought back to those 2 little squirrels I followed. Their stash of pine nuts wasn't just a lucky find, after all. I didn't know the exact demons that drove Wang Yuxin to suicide, but I knew this kind-hearted girl, even in her final moments, had still managed to remember, to scatter the remaining pine nuts from her pocket, just so those little squirrels could survive the brutal winter ahead. It was truly heartbreaking. Suddenly, my phone vibrated twice. It was a notification from Nan Punian. He'd sent over a blank information form, visualizing that $8,000 reward money. I practically vaulted out of bed in a single move. My fingers flew across the screen like lightning, and in less than 10 minutes, I had sent everything back. Exhausted from the previous day's grind, I generously granted myself a morning off, sleeping in until I woke up naturally. I procrastinated until the very last second of checkout, hoarding a stack of disposable toothbrushes and toothpaste. I pushed the concept of getting my money's worth to the limit before finally checking out of the hotel. Still no word on the reward money yet, so the daily hustle had to continue. I biked over to the local fast food joint that delivery drivers absolutely swear by. It's clean, efficient, and serves massive portions. 2 meats and 3 veggies for just $10. It's an absolute steal, no questions asked. The place was packed to the gills when I arrived, so I just grabbed my tray and crouched by the curb to eat. As I was digging in, a faint high-pitched voice suddenly reached my ears. "Mom, this is delicious. Look at all this meat." Chomp chomp, my ears perked up instantly. I scanned my immediate surroundings. There were plenty of delivery guys in yellow vests eating on the curb, but they were almost exclusively men. That voice, however, was clearly the innocent tone of a young boy. After scanning the area once more, I pinpointed the source, the manhole cover beneath my feet. The kid's voice was echoing from deep inside the sewer, but there weren't any construction signs or barriers around. My gut reaction was, did someone fall in and get trapped down there? But then something didn't quite add up. Normally, anyone trapped in a sewer would be screaming for help, doing anything to grab a passerby's attention to be rescued. Why would they be preoccupied with eating meat? Besides, where would you even find meat in a sewer? I was about to brush it off and move on, but the very next second my body froze mid-motion. I slowly lowered myself back into a crouch, my eyes locking onto the manhole cover beneath me with a piercing stare. Seriously again. I suddenly remembered my long overdue golden finger ability. Who says there isn't meat in the sewers? My experience from my past life warned me that under this cover there might be a bag. A burlap sack stuffed with dismembered remains. And that voice I just heard, it could easily be rats or some other scavengers feasting. I'm not sure if it was just my imagination, but the moment that dark thought crossed my mind, I caught a faint, sickening whiff of something decaying wafting through the air. I shoved a piece of braised pork into my mouth to steady my nerves. Did I awaken? Some kind of Detective Conan curse. It hasn't even been 24 hours yet. Even after finishing my lunch, I didn't budge an inch. I was wrestling with a massive problem. If there really are body parts hidden under this cover, how on earth am I supposed to explain to the operator exactly how I knew they were there? What are you staring at? As the light turned red at the intersection, Shu Yuli followed Nanpunian's gaze and spotted me with my head down staring intensely at my feet, with absolute unwavering focus. The light flicked to green, but Nanpunian hesitated for a second, before spinning the steering wheel to pull over by the curb. "Miss Lan?" Nanpunian rolled down the window. The moment I saw his face, I snapped my head up, as if I'd just seen my savior, Captain Nan and forensic guy. "Quick, get over here!" The two of them approached me. "What's the matter?" I pointed straight at the manhole cover. "Hey, forensic guy, do you smell something off?" Shu Yuli's nostrils flared slightly as he took a sniff. He was about to shake his head, but his expression suddenly twisted into a mask of horror. "What is it?" Nanpunian asked, looking between us in confusion. Shu Yuli looked up and gave me a deep, searching look. "Call the forensics team at the station immediately. Tell Xiao Wang to bring my specialized toolkit here." Nanpunian froze for a heartbeat, the gravity of the situation hitting him instantly. He whipped out his phone to make the call. After hanging up, Nanpunian shifted his gaze toward me. "Miss Lan, hold on a moment. We'll need you at the station later to provide a formal statement." Hearing that, I let out a heavy sigh. $100 an hour, and any fraction of an hour counts as a full one. "Paid out of my own pocket," he added. My eyes lit up instantly. For real, Nanpunian looked into my shimmering eyes and swallowed whatever skepticism he had left. For real, he replied. I beamed. Cooperating with an investigation is a fundamental duty of every citizen. Talk about a lightning-fast change of heart. Nanpunian turned his head, only to collide with Shu Yuli's intensely inquisitive stare. His eyelid twitched as he blurted out, "Don't get the wrong idea. I just think the poor girl has a lot on her plate, okay?" Shu Yuli coldly turned his face away. Very soon, a squad of over a dozen police officers swarmed the scene, within a 2-meter radius of the manhole cover. They unspooled the bright yellow caution tape. The delivery drivers nearby watched the spectacle unfold, whipping out their phones in a frenzy. Some were there for the drama. Others were just hunting for the perfect photo. I stood just outside the perimeter, with an officer flanking me like a shadow. The heavy manhole cover was pried open, and the stench of decay became suffocatingly thick. The surrounding crowd winced and covered their noses, the air buzzing with frantic whispers. In my pocket, the local delivery group chat was blowing up, pinging one notification after another. I pulled it out for a quick look. Is anyone actually at the scene right now? That guy just now said. It smells exactly like a horde of bloated, rotting rats. No way, is it actually a body? Looking at this massive turnout, even forensics is here. Terrifying. I'm never eating at this joint again. Shut up, I'm literally gagging already. Just as I read that last message, the sound of actual retching reached my ears. I turned my head and saw several delivery guys hunched over by the curb, synchronized in their dry heaving toward the flower beds. One man stood out not wearing a yellow vest. It was the frantic owner of the fast food restaurant. I turned back, as Nanpunian donned his hazmat suit to descend into the abyss. I hesitated for a split second, before blurting out, "Captain Nan, yo, watch out for the rats." Since he was technically my benefactor, I figured a survival tip was the least I could do. Nanpunian gave a sharp nod of acknowledgement and vanished down the hatch behind the forensics team. Shu Yuli followed closely on his heels. "So, little miss, what's the deal between you and our captain?" The young officer nearby couldn't resist a bit of juicy gossip. Since he'd joined the squad, he'd never seen the captain act so uncharacteristically cordial. "It's a simple business partnership," I replied flatly. "He provides the cash and I provide the statement. If that isn't a partnership, what is?" But the rookie clearly got the wrong idea, assuming I was some high-stakes informant Nanpunian had recruited. His gaze shifted into one of profound pity. Being a snitch is a thankless, brutal life. Dangerous, exhausting, and the paycheck is usually garbage. Scanning my yellow delivery uniform, the sympathy in his eyes was practically overflowing. "Captain, over here we found something," an officer shouted. Nanpunian rushed to the scene, his flashlight instantly locking onto the target. Caught in the wire mesh of the drainage pipe was a massive patterned burlap sack. As the beam flickered, it startled a swarm of rats mid-feast. The vermin scattered into the shadows in a frantic blur. Nanpunian swept his light across the tunnel, his brow furrowing. "Get more men down here, now." One corner of the sack was shredded, revealing horrifying biological tissue scattered everywhere. Glancing at a severed metacarpal bone nearby, it was clear enough to make a grim diagnosis. The contents of that bag were undeniably human. The killer had butchered the victim, processed the remains, and stuffed them into this sack, before cold-bloodedly dumping them into the sewer. The current had dragged the bag through the filth, until it snagged on the protective iron grating. Deep in thought, Nanpunian began to construct a chilling profile of this brutal homicide. Soon, a reinforcement of detectives descended, their flashlights cutting through the dark to hunt for more fragments. The killer dismembered the body to erase the evidence, but the police were hunting for every piece, to find the clues that would give this victim their name back, so they could establish the victim's identity and track down the killer. A dozen officers spent 2 grueling hours scouring the area, only after ensuring not a single fragment was overlooked. Did they transport the recovered remains back to headquarters? Shu Yuli, flanked by his assistant Xiao Wang, dove straight into the morgue. Nanpunian didn't even stop to change out of his gear, before heading straight for the interrogation room. The rookie officer on duty stood at attention the moment Nanpunian stepped inside. Captain, truth be told, at this point, the rookie had no clue what he was even supposed to ask me. The captain had simply told him to keep an eye on me. "It's fine, go handle your other tasks," Nanpunian instructed. The young cop shot me a knowing look, and nodded, thinking he understood the situation. After all, he was convinced I was the captain's secret informant. Nanpunian remained blissfully unaware that the rookie had totally misread their relationship. Glancing at the closed door, he pulled a can of Coke from his pocket and slid it toward me. "Sorry, things move so fast I haven't had time to change." Nanpunian was well aware he didn't smell like roses right now. He was practically marinated in the stench of the sewers. "No worries, I've smelled far worse in my time," I replied unfazed as I popped the tab. I took a massive gulp. "Ah, that hits the spot. You're remarkably composed." From the moment they first crossed paths, Nanpunian had sensed that the girl before him possessed a psychological fortitude far beyond her years. "So care to enlighten me? How exactly did you know there were butchered remains beneath that manhole cover?" Nanpunian's fingers drummed rhythmically against the table, his dark eyes sharp and piercing. While he felt a flicker of pity for the girl, compassion was one thing. The case was another entirely. He couldn't afford to let them blur. He hadn't had a spare second earlier, but now that things had calmed down, it was obvious. I had been calculatedly leading them from the very start. In other words, before that cover was ever pried open, I already knew exactly what was rotting underneath. It was a detail impossible for a detective to ignore. My lips parted slightly, searching for the right words. But Nanpunian cut me off with a sharp gesture. Don't even try the "I'm sensitive to the smell" line, or some excuse about reading too many mystery novels. His dark eyes locked onto mine, piercing and cold, making it clear he wasn't buying any of my typical nonsense. Fair enough, this time it really was a tough sell. If Nanpunian actually fell for a weak lie, I'd have to wonder if this young captain had used some shady back doors to get his rank. I cradled the cold Coke, my thumb tracing the rim of the aluminum can in a rhythmic friction. Nanpunian knew I was weighing my options, so he didn't press me or rush the interrogation. The room fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. After a long pause, I finally looked up. This is going to sound completely insane, but Nanpunian arched an inquisitive eyebrow. Do you believe in the existence of supernatural abilities? I gave him the Cliff Notes version, summarizing my cheat code and the sequence of events that led me to sense the anomaly under that manhole. I hadn't spoken that much in a single sitting for ages. My throat felt parched and scratchy, so I took another long, refreshing swig of soda. Then I just stared at Nanpunian with wide, expectant eyes. Nanpunian sat there utterly floored by the explanation. Every word was plain English, but he looked like he was struggling to process the language. It took him a good while to digest the information and wrap his head around my bizarre claims. So, you're telling me you can understand rats? And based on their conversation, you deduced there was a corpse under that cover. I gave him a slow, obedient nod, my face the very picture of absolute sincerity. Nanpunian just stared back, speechless and exhausted, watching his face shift through a kaleidoscope of emotions. I added in a low, measured tone, "I can prove it." He looked up sharply. "Go on," I heard the rat say, that it tasted extra crunchy when they bit down. I licked my lips nervously, which leads me to suspect that some of the remains might have been pan-fried or deep-fried by the killer. Nanpunian's heart skipped a violent beat. He narrowed his eyes, scrutinizing me with renewed intensity. "Are you aware," he whispered, "that everything you just said makes you the prime suspect in this murder?" The elite officers of his squad were all expert trackers, and they would never leak sensitive intel to anyone outside the active investigation. Therefore, Nanpunian was absolutely certain that there was no way I could have learned that detail from the police. The only person who should know that fact would be the killer themselves. I'm aware, I nodded, but that is the cold truth. Nanpunian's fingers drummed restlessly against the desk as he stole frequent glances at the girl opposite him. She remained unnervingly calm, radiating an aura that suggested he was free to investigate her as much as he liked. This level of composure matched the psychological profile of a high IQ criminal perfectly. But on second thought, Yato, would a high IQ killer really live in such abject poverty? I will investigate your claims thoroughly. For now, you are required to remain in Hangcheng to assist with our ongoing evidence collection. Nanpunian made his final call. He decided to follow standard procedure, restricting my movements while they verified my story, given my past life. As a forensic expert, I completely understood the protocol and was more than willing to cooperate. By the way, I just noticed your reward application was approved. If there are no hiccups, the funds should hit your account by tomorrow. With the interrogation over, Nanpunian dropped his sharp edge to offer the reminder. The moment the words left his lips, a notification chime echoed through the room. It was my phone. I blinked in surprise, checking the screen to find a bank deposit alert. My balance had just surged by over 8,000 bucks, even though I didn't utter a word. Nanpunian could visibly sense the tidal wave of excitement and joy radiating from me. As a wealthy third-generation heir, this was the first time he'd seen such a raw, tangible manifestation of how much happiness money can buy. Amused, Nanpunian pulled out his phone and transferred me 500 bucks. I snapped out of my trance. It was way too much, even including the time spent waiting for them to fish out the remains. It had barely been 3 hours. I was desperate for cash, but I wasn't a total parasite. "Consider it my treat," he said. "Stop living off junk food. It's zero nutrition." Nanpunian slid his phone away, with a world-weary authoritative tone that made him sound like an overprotective guardian. "Then I won't stand on ceremony." "Much appreciated, Captain." I tilted my head, giving him a long, searching look. I could genuinely sense the kindness he was extending, so I didn't push back. In exchange, I figured if I ever stumbled upon any more bizarre or macabre occurrences, Nanpunian would be the very first person I'd call. I'd help him skyrocket his solve rate. Nanpunian was already swamped like a dog the moment he sent me off. He pivoted back to find Shu Yuli. Shu Yuli finally emerged from the morgue, handing Nanpunian a preliminary autopsy report. The incisions on the flesh are ragged and uneven, The killer isn't a professional. Trace element analysis confirms. The dismemberment tool was just a common kitchen cleaver. Oh, and one more thing from the chest. And gluteal tissue samples. I detected abnormally high levels of hyaluronic acid. Shu Yuli paused for a beat, glancing sideways at Nan Punyan. Basically, she was full of fillers. Nan Punyan scanned the data meticulously. Understood, he muttered. A mental profile of the victim began to take shape. Approximately 26 years old, standing around 5'5", slender build, pre-mortem weight roughly 45 kilograms. Likely had a tattoo or a distinct scar on her calf. With these specific identifiers, they could blast out a missing persons alert by tracing the sewer lines back and canvassing the nearby upscale residential complexes. They'd likely pinpoint the victim's identity in no time. Meanwhile, I had just dropped off my final delivery, right in the heart of Hangchang, near a luxury high-rise apartment block by the university. Each building boasted a one-on-one concierge desk, manned 24 hours a day. The elevators were strictly keycard access only, usually permitting only residents to go up. Any outside visitors must register and obtain the resident's explicit consent before the concierge will swipe them up to the floors. It's rumored that the tenants here are mostly big-time streamers or internet influencers. My order notes requested a drop-off at the front desk, which saved me a massive headache. Job done, that's another 240 in the bag, combined with the 500 from Nan Punyan. My total haul for today is 740. Life is finally starting to look up. I logged out of the delivery app, tucked my helmet under my arm, and headed out. That's when I crossed paths with a man and a woman. The woman trailed behind him, her face twisted in a scowl, her lips moving frantically, as if she were mid-rant. The man, looking utterly fed up, only quickened his pace to get away from her. He glanced at my yellow uniform, and the visual cue seemed to remind him that he'd actually ordered food. He marched toward the front desk. High pickup for order 2215, sensing a bit of drama. I intentionally slowed my exit. Hearing the order number made me blink in surprise. What a crazy coincidence. That $15 premium sushi delivery I just finished. This was the guy who ordered it. I couldn't help but steal a closer look at him. He was just over 6 feet tall, weighing in at roughly 180 pounds. Stocky build, dressed in all black, rocking a pair of Nike sneakers. My gaze lingered on a band-aid stuck to the webbing of his right hand. He looked to be about 25 or 26, with heavy dark circles under his eyes. Eyes. He looked completely drained, his eyes bloodshot and weary. It was obvious he hadn't slept a wink in days. Old professional habits die hard. I instinctively scanned him from head to toe, sizing him up completely. The woman he'd been ignoring finally reached her breaking point. Guanchuo, are you still hung up on that little slut? Guanchuo grabbed his sushi and glared at her. Kangming, are you seriously doing this now? Haven't you had enough? He had been drowning in irritation for days now, with zero patience left for his paranoid girlfriend. Not enough. This sushi joint is Wang Sui's favorite spot, isn't it? Did she order this for you? What the hell is she playing at? We're literally getting married soon. Why can't that woman just let you go? Kangming glared at the delivery packaging, and instead of calming down, her rage boiled over. I'm calling her to settle this. You two broke up half a year ago. What's her deal? She reached into her bag to whip out her phone, ready to dial the number. Guanchuo, already simmering with agitation, seemed to snap at that very moment. He lunged forward, snatched the phone from Kangming, and violently hurled it onto the floor. Still not satisfied, Guanchuo's face twisted in fury as he stomped on the device over and over, as if he had been possessed by a demon. This sudden outburst left everyone nearby paralyzed with shock. Kangming's expression shifted from pure disbelief to white-hot anger that he would go so far as to destroy her phone just to stop her. But finally, seeing Guanchuo's unhinged state, she felt only terror. She stepped forward and threw her arms around his waist, trying to restrain his violent movements. What's wrong with you? Guanchuo, stop please. You're scaring me. Only then did he snap out of it. Guanchuo blinked, coming back to his senses. He glanced down at the mangled remains of the phone, then scanned the crowd of onlookers. His gaze flickered with an unreadable shadow before he pulled her close. I'm so sorry. I've just been off lately. He held her tight, whispering apologies. I'm just exhausted, that's all. Linger, I'm so sorry about your phone. Kangming shook her head. It's fine. It doesn't matter. The explosion was as sudden as a lightning strike, and their reconciliation was just as bizarre. In less than 10 minutes, the two were walking arm in arm, carrying the sushi into the elevator. Is this the legendary toxic love people talk about? As I walked out of the complex gates, mounting my electric scooter, I clicked my tongue in disapproval. That man clearly possessed a volatile, violent streak. Based on the criminal psychological profiles from my past life, individuals like him represent a massive risk. Also, it says, the perfect candidates for crimes of passion. Once you cross a certain psychological threshold, they are highly likely to spiral into a manic, uncontrollable state of blind rage. Moreover, once someone like that enters a marriage, domestic violence is almost an inevitable outcome. But even after witnessing that red flag firsthand, that girl Kong Ming seemed to have zero intention of breaking things off. To that, I have only one thing to say: respect, and good luck with all that. I wasn't in a rush to start my delivery shift today. Instead, I headed to the cafeteria to grab a bite. While eating, I scrolled through the local headlines, inevitably spotting the missing person notice from the police, a $5,000 bounty. I wanted it, but finding a body last time was pure luck. This kind of cash isn't something you can just conjure up. I felt a momentary pang of regret before moving on to browse the rest of the news. After my meal, I wandered over to the back street of the school, a bustling hub of snack stalls, famously known as the Golden Street. Plenty of students were there hawking handmade trinkets. I picked up a small folding desk and a background poster. Back at the dorm, I hooked up to the Wi-Fi, set up my corner, and pulled the privacy curtain shut, creating my own tiny broadcasting sanctuary. Time to get down to business. Since I'd committed to giving live streaming a shot, I wasn't going to procrastinate. After all, if you aren't hustling for your bag, your mindset is the real problem. With the backdrop finalized, I applied some light makeup and kicked off the stream. I'm terrible at naming things, so I went with a simple handle, Hengcheng Xiaolan. As for the title of the stream, I actually put some serious thought into it. Xiaolan Online, bridging the gap with animals. The hook, are you still feeling down because you can't? Understand what your pet is trying to tell you. Do you truly comprehend the animal dialogue? Are you still feeling down because you can't understand what your pet is trying to tell you? Do you really know what's going on in your master's head? Craving the absolute devotion of your furry overlord. Follow Xiaolan right now and witness a total revolution in your pet-human dynamic. It's a bit cliche, sure, but at least it's straightforward and punchy. One glance is all it takes to know exactly what this stream is about. I hit go live, but for the first 30 minutes, my viewer count sat at a soul-crushing 0. I didn't sweat it. Every legend has a rocky start, right? It's totally normal for a rookie streamer to have 0 traffic. Another half hour crawled by, and finally the room saw some signs of life. A few stray souls drifted in and out, clearly intrigued by the bizarre stream title, but too shy to speak, so I took the initiative. Welcome to the stream, new fans. Don't forget to smash that follow button in the top left. Follow your girl so you never lose the way. Stay subbed so you won't miss the next session. If you have pets at home, I'll help you communicate with them for free. I was just recycling lines I'd memorized from watching other pros. The moment I finished my pitch, my follower count ticked up by 1. I smirked. Shout out to Fish Lover Baby for the follow. Sending hearts. Truth is, I'm a bit of an introvert. Facing the camera made my smile feel stiff and awkward. Luckily, my visuals are top tier, so I still look decent enough on screen. Fish Lover sent a message, "Hey Miss Streamer, can you really talk to animals? Queridos." I rested my chin on my hand. Absolutely. If you need help, just request a video link. Fish Lover went silent. Honestly, I get it. If I were just some random person stumbling onto a stream like this, I'd be skeptical too. I probably wouldn't even bother clicking in. Just as I was about to go back to my book, the screen suddenly split down the middle. Whoa, looks like I got matched with a total newbie this time. A cheerful male voice boomed through the speakers. I blanked for a second, then realized I'd been dragged into a forced PK battle. Do use PK mode comes in 2 flavors: requested battles and forced matchups. Streamers with over 10,000 followers can opt out of forced matchups entirely. I never expected that on my very first day. I'd be thrown into the deep end with a forced PK. I glanced over at the opposing streamer, tall, handsome dad. The guy on the screen looked to be about 27 or 8, with messy bedhead hair, and a strikingly handsome face. Hengcheng Xiaolan, wait, are you in Hengcheng too? What a small world. Tall, handsome dad flashed me a grin. Hengcheng. Haolan Xiaolan! You're really in Hengcheng. As well, what are the odds? Tall, handsome dad beamed a radiant smile at me, not showing even a hint of elitism, just because I was a total rookie. Yeah, I'm in Hengcheng. Hello. I offered a polite greeting, maintaining my composure without being overly humble. Tall, handsome dad seemed pleasantly surprised by my vibe and decided to explain the situation. I'm actually in the middle of a guild PK tournament, so I have to leave the forced PK mode on. Really sorry about that. Let's just have a quick casual match. Seeing my follower count was literally 1. Paul Dad felt a surge of genuine sympathy. Even his own debut wasn't this pathetic. I just nodded. It's not like I had the power to refuse. Suddenly, the sharp, frantic barking of a dog erupted. Gao Gao, stop acting up. Tall Dad looked down, trying to soothe his wildly barking, highly agitated corgi, because he was tugging at the leash. The camera shook violently. I caught a glimpse of the corgi on screen. It seemed to have spotted something that sent it into a total frenzy. But as the camera panned, there were no pedestrians in sight, nor anything that should trigger such a reaction. Gao Gao's soft whimpering wasn't helping, so Tall Dad raised his voice a notch. The corgi finally let out a low moan, slumping onto the ground with a look of pure misery, emitting a series of pathetic whines. Tall Dad looked exhausted. He had no idea what was wrong with Gao Gao lately. The dog's mood had been mysteriously low. His appetite had completely vanished, and even his favorite squeaky toys. failed to pique even a shred of interest. Tall Dad was frantic with worry, so he rushed him to the vet for a checkup. The results showed his vitals were perfectly fine, aside from being a little chunky. Gao Gao's daily cardio sessions were boosted from 30 minutes twice a day to a grueling hour-long trek 3 times a day. Maybe it was just the sheer exhaustion, but his appetite finally made a comeback. Yet he suddenly became incredibly volatile. If you scold him, he acts like his heart is breaking, exactly like he's doing right now. I smirked while processing the chaotic data. I had just overheard from the dog. My gaze drifted involuntarily to the top of the man's head, hesitating on whether to give Tall Dad a friendly warning. A few stray fans in the stream had also started noticing my channel's bio. Can Xiaolan really understand what pets are saying? Yeah, for real. Xiaolan, can you tell us what Gao Gao is barking about? Noticing the flood of comments from the fans, Tall Dad finally took a good look at my stream title. He asked with a look of pure confusion, Xiaolan, you can actually understand animals. He scrutinized my live stream details once more, asking skeptically, Xiaolan, can you really translate what animals are saying? I nodded, even though the claim sounded utterly ridiculous, given the bizarre tension of the moment. Tall Dad had a total brain fart, and blurted out instinctively, then, did you catch what Gao Gao was just saying? The words had barely escaped his mouth, before Tall Dad felt a wave of immediate regret. How could he possibly fall for such a blatant gimmick? I understood him, while Tall Dad was wallowing in self-reproach. That one sentence cut through the air. He froze. What did he say? I pursed my lips. First, let's get one thing straight. I am only the messenger. I'm not responsible for the consequences of his words. Tall Dad's heart skipped a beat. That definitely didn't sound like it was going to be a compliment. But his curiosity was currently redlining. Could I truly understand? All right. Tall Dad agreed. I asked, do you have a mirror on you? Or maybe a spare phone? You have a spare, good. Turn on the camera. Flip to your front-facing camera and aim it right at yourself. I instructed him in a calm, steady voice. Tall Dad was utterly bewildered, and the viewers in the stream were just as clueless, paralyzed by sheer curiosity. The audience had completely forgotten that the two streamers were still in the heat of a PK battle. Tall Dad followed the instructions. All right, it's set. Now what? He stared at his own reflection in the lens. Yep, still as devastatingly handsome as ever. I asked him point blank, don't you think? Your head is looking a little green today. At that moment, Tall Dad and his entire audience were covered in question marks. What is that supposed to mean? You idiot, she's saying he's getting cuckolded. Wait, Tall Dad actually has a girlfriend. How have I never heard about this? He definitely does. Us OG fans all know about her. I think they've been together for 4 or 5 years. Holy crap, is this rookie streamer actually about to call it so? Tall Dad finally caught the drift, his entire face freezing in place. That's impossible, he barked back, his expression simmering with rising indignation. I know you're fuming, but don't blow your top just yet, because that's exactly what Gao Gao just told me. He's been acting out because at this exact time, whenever your girlfriend takes him out for a walk, they always end up at a hotel. I gave a nonchalant shrug and threw down the gauntlet. If you don't believe me, just let Gao Gao lead the way to his usual hotel hangout and see for yourself. Tall Dad fell into a heavy silence. The fact that he had a girlfriend was a secret only his OG fans knew. There were only about 50 people in that private group, all of them top-tier donors on the leaderboard. Judging by my plain clothes, Tall Dad knew. They were all high-spending elite supporters. One look at my outfit, and Tall Dad was convinced that I definitely wasn't part of his inner circle of fans. But could a friend of mine have known and then leaked the info to me? Did I intentionally hunt him down for a PK? Just to manufacture a viral stunt for clout and followers? No, that doesn't add up. Tall Dad quickly tossed that suspicion aside. Damn it, it was a forced PK match. He was the one who initiated the contact with me. If I actually had the god tier connections to manipulate the Douyu backend like that, there's no way. I'd still be sitting here with just a handful of followers. Could it be as the most likely conclusion hit him? Tall Dad's handsome face darkened instantly. After wrestling with his thoughts for a full minute, he finally decided to roll the dice. It wasn't that he fully trusted me, but he suddenly recalled all of Gao Gao's bizarre behavior over the past month. This past month, he had been constantly traveling, commuting between the dog food factory and Hangcheng. So he'd asked his girlfriend to look after Gao Gao daily and handle the walks. His girlfriend was a very traditional girl. Despite being together for 5 years, they hadn't moved in yet. She'd only drop by occasionally to play with Gao Gao, or they'd take the pup on the occasional road trip. At the start of this year, their families met and they officially got engaged. After checking their fortune, they planned to register the marriage by year end and hold the wedding ceremony next May to ensure he could provide the life she deserved. Tall Dad poured everything into opening his own dog food processing plant. First, so his fans could buy fresher, healthier kibble for their pets, and second, to build a stable side hustle. After all, in the volatile world of internet fame, He didn't know how long he could keep the lights on. But when he returned from his trips, Gao Gao seemed different. At the time, he didn't think much of it, assuming the pup was just sulking because he'd been gone for so long. Now reflecting on his girlfriend's sudden coldness and Gao Gao's strange moods, the pieces were fitting together. Tall Dad crouched down and gave Gao Gao's head a gentle pat. Every red flag was now surfacing in his mind. Tall Dad knelt low and patted the corgi's head once more. Gao Gao, do you know where Mommy is? Can you take Daddy to find Mommy, please? Gao Gao looked as if he understood perfectly. He scrambled up from the pavement instantly, spun in a frantic circle, and clamped his teeth onto the leash, yanking hard. He was clearly signaling for Tall Dad to follow. Tall Dad froze, stunned by the dog's urgency, as a heavy dread began to sink into his gut. Gao Gao's reaction was undeniably bizarre. The corgi lunged forward, dragging Tall Dad into a sprint. The background scenery blurred past the camera lens, until I spotted a very distinctive landmark, a grand imposing lion sculpture. My eyebrows shot up. What a twisted coincidence. I had just been to this exact spot last night, and witnessed some major drama firsthand. As the towering 5-star hotel loomed closer, even the haters in the livestream chat began to look at Tall Dad with pure pity. Gao Gao came to a sudden jarring halt. Standing right before them was the lobby of the Grand Inn. Gao Gao barked sharply several times. He says Mommy is right inside, and he's telling you to hurry up. I chimed in, acting as the perfect translation bot. Tall Dad's mouth twitched with suppressed emotion. It had come to this. No matter how much he wanted to deny the truth, he was forced to face the cold hard facts, because he personally had never once brought Gao Gao to this specific Grand Inn hotel. If Gao Gao hadn't been here before, he wouldn't be navigating the place like a local. So the question of who had been bringing him already had a glaringly obvious answer. He was being cuckolded, plain and simple. But what if she's just discussing a project, like a late night script reading or something? Tall Dad was still clinging to a final desperate shred of hope. After a moment of hesitation, he finally led Gao Gao into the hotel lobby. Welcome. Are you checking in today, sir? We offer specialized pet suites, fully sanitized and professional. We'd love for you to try them. Tall Dad glanced at the receptionist and muttered, Actually, I'm looking for someone. The receptionist's professional smile faltered slightly, replaced by a flicker of guarded suspicion. And who exactly might you be looking for? Her gaze sharpened as her warmth ebbed away. Her gaze sharpened, brimming with intense suspicion as she sized him up. And who exactly are you trying to locate, sir? Her ID number is... No. Shit. Tall Dad reached out and muted his livestream microphone for a brief moment. He recited his girlfriend's identification digits with grim precision, then reactivated the audio. I see. We do indeed have a record of this lady checking into our establishment. May I ask what your relationship is with this guest? The receptionist inquired with a professional smile. It wasn't just a figment of Tall Dad's imagination. He could swear the look she gave him was suddenly overflowing with pity. Tall Dad's lips trembled, but the word fiancé felt like lead, impossible to utter. At this point, further investigation seemed almost redundant. Only last night his girlfriend had been complaining to him about her business trip to the capital today, moaning that her company would only reimburse economy class to ensure his bride-to-be traveled in comfort. Tall Dad had personally upgraded her to first class. Yet here he was in this very moment. The woman who should have landed in Beijing hours ago was still lurking right here in Hangcheng, hidden somewhere inside this very hotel. Tall Dad turned on his heel, ready to flee. But Gao Gao wasn't about to let him off the hook. The dog barked sharply, and I spoke up once more. Gao Gao says he's taking you straight to Mommy. Tall Dad already knew his head was glowing neon green, and he saw no need for a viral caught-in-the-act scandal. Gao Gao, however, couldn't care less about his master's fragile ego. He clamped the leash in his teeth and bolted. Toward the stairs, the mission was to find Mommy, and the job wasn't finished until the target was in sight. Technically, the PK battle had already ended, and Tall Dad was the victor, but nobody cared about the scoreboard anymore. The entire audience was vibrating with anticipation for the showdown. This was the peak of live stream drama, wasn't it? Is this what they mean by unlucky in love, but lucky in business? Tall Dad, it's okay. Stay strong. You still have us, Tall Dad. Stared at the comments from these chaos-loving spectators. Yeah, you still have us, Tall Dad. Gazing at the screen full of chaos-loving spectators, Tall Dad's mouth twitched uncontrollably. The sheer force radiating from the leash was no joke. Clearly, he should have never gone live today. Despite the crushing reluctance in his heart, he was dragged by Gao Gao straight to the 5th floor. The moment the elevator doors hissed open, Gao Gao's excitement hit a fever pitch. Gao Gao says to step on it. He's already caught a whiff of Mommy's scent. I rested my chin on my palm, my voice soft and melodic, yet my words were like tiny daggers to his heart. Within seconds, Gao Gao skidded to a halt in front of a specific room, tilting his head as he stared up at Tall Dad. Just one thin door stood between them, a barrier that once crossed would likely flip his entire life upside down forever. After a heavy moment of hesitation, Tall Dad finally raised his hand and rapped on the door. A groggy, muffled voice echoed from within, sounding like someone who had just been jolted awake. "Who is it?" The tone was thick with the annoyance of being disturbed. The kicker. It was a man's voice. Tall Dad's blood instantly boiled, even though he'd mentally braced for the worst. Actually hearing another man in there made his fist clench involuntarily. "Hello, room service." Tall Dad replied, deepening his voice. To excel as a professional streamer, he had actually spent time training his vocal range. During his broadcasts, he usually forced his tone into something much gentler. Holy crap, here it comes. The legendary, caught-in-the-act moment everyone wanted. Isn't this high-stakes drama better than any TV show? I can't take it even though I'm not physically there. Why is my heart racing with such intense anxiety? The man responded with sheer impatience. Oh, it's necessary. The corridor fell into a deathly silence for a moment. Galba contemplated for a heartbeat, then raised his hand to knock again. "What else do you want?" "Yo." This time Galba didn't hesitate. He demanded Liu Xing open up. Now the interior of the room plunged into total silence as well. Whoa, what kind of insane situation is this? Is it possible you still can't see the truth? It's painfully obvious this homewrecker is an old acquaintance of Galba. This just makes the whole tragedy feel even more pathetic. I never expected it either. Witnessing an affair during my very first livestream was wild enough, but the betrayal on the other side of that wall was completely unforeseen. To witness such a blatant betrayal during my debut stream is one thing, but to find out the other man is actually a close friend. Even the most twisted screenwriters couldn't dream up a script this scandalous. After a heavy, suffocating silence filled the room, 10 agonizing minutes slowly ticked by. Before the door was finally pried open from the inside, a towering man loomed within the camera's frame. Lucien caught sight of Galba, her face a mask of sheer awkwardness. "Brother, what on earth are you doing here?" "I brought Gao Gao to find his mother." Compared to his explosive rage from before, Galba had now become eerily, unnervingly calm. Lucien's lips parted slightly, as if she were desperately searching for an excuse. But Gao Gao was already impatient, darting past her and scurrying deep into the room. Galba shoved past her, stepping coldly into the space. The massive bed was a chaotic, disheveled mess, with withered rose petals still scattered across the sheets. The entire ambiance was warm, intimate, and suggestive, clearly a suite designed exclusively for lovers. Yet only Lucien was visible in the room now. Gao Gao circled the area frantically, finally coming to a dead halt in front of a wardrobe. With a stony expression, Galba yanked the cabinet open, only to find it completely hollow and empty. "Woof, woof!" Gao Gao barked incessantly at the back of the closet. Gao Gao is saying his mother should be right here, but now she's mysteriously vanished. The poor pup is completely bewildered. I hopped back online immediately. Galba, wearing his Bluetooth headset, listened intently to my instructions, his face remaining a cold, unreadable void. He reached deep into the back of the wardrobe, and his fingers quickly brushed against a hidden latch. With a subtle click, the partition snapped open with a sharp thud, revealing a secret passageway leading straight to the outer corridor. How did he know it was there? Simple. It was all thanks to a recent collaboration with a YouTuber crew. They had just filmed a deep dive expose on hotel secrets, originally scheduled for editing and release this coming Saturday. Who would have thought it would be put to use in a situation like this? Galba stood there, torn between shedding tears or breaking into a bitter laugh. The moment that hidden door swung open, Gao Gao's frantic barking surged with a sudden intense excitement. This time, there was absolutely no need for my translation. Galba understood the grim reality instantly. The pup had definitely picked up his mother's scent. Galba pivoted to face the man, the truth finally sinking in. It wasn't just a hunch, he had caught the lingering scent of his wife. Galba turned his piercing gaze toward the man. Lucien stood frozen, her face completely masked in overwhelming guilt. If Galba had just erupted like a typical betrayed husband, and given him a savage beating, Lucien might not have felt this crushing weight of remorse. But instead, Galba didn't scream or cause a scene. His eerie, unnatural silence was far more terrifying and impossible to read. Just how long have you two been sneaking around behind my back, Vey? Lucien realized that things had reached a point of no return, and there was no way to hide the truth anymore. She began to confess every sordid detail starting from over a month ago. Lucien wasn't just an assistant to Galba, she was practically his most trusted business partner. Galba had placed his absolute faith in Lucien, so finding out these two were entwined in an affair was a brutal double cross that shattered his entire world. Stepping out of the hotel and into the cold air, Galba exhaled a long, heavy breath of pure exhaustion. He looked at me with an apologetic gaze. "I'm so sorry, Xiaonan. I've completely derailed your live stream." The PK battle had concluded ages ago, yet our connection was still active, broadcasting to the masses. Don't sweat it. Honestly, I've been enjoying the drama quite a bit. Forget about the loser's penalty. Let me send you some compensation for your help instead. Galba looked physically and mentally drained to his core. "Thank you, Galba," I replied, not bothering to turn down the offer. After all, I did put in the work to uncover the truth, so taking a little consulting fee is only fair, right? After surviving such a traumatic ordeal, Galba clearly wasn't in the mood to keep the cameras rolling. He sent a lavish 1,000 yuan blooming flowers gift, then abruptly cut the connection, and ended his stream for the night, even though at that very moment, his viewer count had exploded past a staggering 200,000. This was the kind of viral fame Galba wanted nothing to do with those 200,000 viewers suddenly left with nowhere to go. And having just witnessed my incredible skills firsthand, the vast majority of them came flooding into my live stream. I owe a huge thanks to Galba for this absolute godsend of a windfall, watching the viewer count skyrocket like crazy. My lips curled into a smirk. I've already cleared 500 in tips on day 1, and my follower count has reached a massive breakthrough. To say I'm satisfied would be a huge understatement. Newcomers, don't forget to smash that follow button, babes. If you need pet relationship advice, feel free to jump on a live link. Yeet yeet. After that legendary PK battle, my follower count jumped from a lonely single digit to well over 3,000 in an instant, and the growth trend shows no signs of slowing down. Wait, can we really link up with you live? Is it cool if I don't show my face and just show my pet? Xiaonan, can you really understand every single animal out there? What about snakes or lizards and stuff? The bullet chats were scrolling so fast it was like a machine gun. The barrage of comments was absolutely overwhelming. I handpicked a few relevant questions from the chaos and answered one by one. Yes, we can link. If you're shy, you don't have to show your face at all. Just point the camera at your pet. I'm not 100% sure about snakes just yet, but we can certainly give it a shot. As I was answering, the screen suddenly split into another connection. I wondered what kind of high-tier streamer I'd be facing this time. I froze, staring at the man on the screen, my brow twitching uncontrollably. It wasn't because he was some mega influencer, but because the person staring back at me was Guan Suo, the very protagonist of the drama I witnessed last night. Guan Suo began his intro, but the moment he locked eyes with me, the practiced smile on his face vanished instantly. He never dreamed that the insignificant delivery rider from last night would suddenly have the audacity to show up as a streamer today. And what a twisted stroke of fate. Of all people, he had to get matched with me for a PK. Even more crucial was the fact that it felt like he had practically served himself up on a silver platter. Guansiko's heart was racing with anxiety. Having seen his true ugly colors firsthand, he feared I'd spill the tea in front of everyone. Hello there. Guansishuo greeted me, maintaining a facade of calm composure. I nodded back simply, hello. Neither of us dared to break the unspoken tension between us. Seeing how well-behaved I was acting, Guanshuo smirked and suggested, hey there, little streamer sister. Why don't you show off a talent for us? A little dance or a song could help you rake in some votes. The words sounded like friendly advice on the surface, but to the countless versions of me, I still saw right through it. Instantly detecting the malice and disdain Guanshuo hid beneath his gaze, I replied nonchalantly, thanks for the suggestion, but I'm not exactly the singing and dancing type. Even when squaring off against a superstar influencer with the millions of followers, my expression remained cool and unfazed. If you can't even sing or dance, why even bother streaming? Seriously, Douyu standards have hit rock bottom lately. It seems like every random nobody thinks they can be a creator now. Exactly, with that zero effort attitude, why does she even live? Douyu is truly a joke these days. Any stray cat or dog can just hop on and call themselves a streamer. And look at that arrogant face. She's probably faking that Ice Queen persona on purpose, playing hard to get, just to bait our Guanshuo's attention, seeing my indifferent reaction. Guansiku hadn't even voiced his thoughts yet, but his rabid fanbase was already losing their minds. A wave of toxic insults came crashing toward me, with haters even invading my chat specifically to hurl abuse. Their words were incredibly vile and stinging. The followers currently in my stream were mostly pet lovers from Galba's community, usually mild-mannered and kind. They had never dealt with a coordinated hate raid like this. Besides, most of them had only followed me out of sheer curiosity, so they weren't exactly ready to fight a war in my defense. As I was being dragged through the mud, they could only try to play peacemaker, begging everyone to just calm down. No need, it's really not necessary. Guanshuo seemed to daze out for a beat, finally snapping back to reality. As he hurriedly tried to rein in his fans, he looked at me with a face full of fake regret. I'm so sorry. My fans can be a bit blunt and outspoken sometimes. I hope they didn't upset you. Allow me to apologize on their behalf, Xiaonan. Before I could even get a word in, right then, I Love Eating Fish dropped 10 Douyu #1 gifts in a row, one luxury submarine after another, exploded across the screen in a flash of dazzling effects, completely burying the toxic spam of the haters. It wasn't just the fans who were stunned. I was completely caught off guard too. I blinked several times in disbelief, finally managing to find my voice. I love eating fish? Sweetie, there's really no need for such expensive gifts. This is far too much. Honestly, it's no big deal even if I lose this round. If the penalty task they dream up is way too out of line, I can simply refuse to play along. Sure, my reputation might take a slight hit for that, and people might call me a sore loser or a quitter. But these trolls behind their screens can't actually touch me. And if anyone is actually brave enough To challenge me in real life, I'm definitely not losing sleep over it. If anything, I'm more worried about I love eating fish's bank account. Listen, fishy babe, why don't you wait until I'm offline? I'm genuinely concerned about your wallet right now. Seriously. Just wait until I finish the stream and I'll add you on WeChat. Once the platform allows me to withdraw the funds, I'll refund my entire share of the tips back to you. In my past life, I handled countless grisly homicide cases involving obsessed top fans and their favorite female streamers. Usually it's some guy who drained his entire life savings, or took out massive loans just to play the part of a big boss, only to be rejected when he demands an offline meeting. Driven to a dead end and fueled by rage, they snap and turn to murder. That's exactly why from the very start, I had zero intention of taking the typical sexy dancing or talent show route. I wanted to avoid the kind of excessive tipping that leads to these messy, complicated entanglements. I thought I had it all figured out, but I never could have predicted that on my very first day of broadcasting, the very first fan I'd encounter would turn out to be such an absolute goddess tier whale. LMAO, this is the first I've ever seen. Since never seen in such a song in such a so that dodge. A streamer actually begged to give the money back. You know, it's like, if you can't afford to play, then don't throw your money around. Stop acting so self-righteous. You're clearly not as loaded as you're trying to seem. Hearing my words, Guanxuo's fans, who had quieted down for a moment, immediately started jumping down my throat again. The PK progress bar was fluctuating wildly. Guanxuo's wealthy sisters were putting in work and catching up fast. But I love eating fish shut them down with the boss move. Don't worry. I've got the cash. I just can't stand the sound of dogs barking. The second those words hit the chat, the livestream effects ignited the screen once more. I love eating fish gifted the streamer 10 always by your side packs. The regular fans in my room were completely shell-shocked. This was supposed to be a simple 15-minute rookie PK, just a small-time qualifying match. But I love eating fish had single-handedly turned it into a high-stakes showdown. Guanxuo stared at my stream statistics, infuriated that a single donor was carrying my entire side, and absolutely obliterating him. His expression soured instantly. Yet while facing me directly, he seemed strangely uneasy. He desperately wanted to start dancing to bait his wealthy big sister fans into showering him with even more tips to close the gap. With only 60 seconds remaining on the clock, his fundraising window was closing fast. Just do your best, everyone. The opponent is just overwhelmingly powerful, Guanxuo said, flashing a practiced smile at his audience. He then pivoted toward me. Xiaonan, you're truly incredible. Getting blessed by a legendary whale on your very first day? I'm honestly so jealous. Despite his tone sounding perfectly normal, I could practically smell the overwhelming scent of green tea manipulation, especially after witnessing Guanxuo's explosive rage when he smashed his phone last night. The contrast with his current facade was laughably obvious. I replied with a beaming smile. Right. I suppose I'm just exceptionally lucky. Even I'm jealous of myself right now. Suddenly, a sharp, frantic meow cut through the tension. Guanxuo leaned down and hoisted a white cat into his arms, thrusting it toward the camera to deflect the awkwardness. Xiaobai, come say hello to all the lovely ladies. The cat, perhaps overwhelmed by the harsh studio light, began breathing in short, shallow gasps, appearing visibly distressed and panicky. Guanxuo kept talking as he reached out to pet the cat's head. But the white cat suddenly lashed out, swiping at him with a sharp claw. Live on camera. Guanxuo's hand flared with a bright, angry red welt. Seconds later, beads of crimson blood began to seep through the scratch. The moment Guanxuo saw the blood, his eyes flickered with a dark intensity, and a sinister, eerie emotion flashed deep within his pupils. What's gotten into Xiaobai? That scratch looks deep and painful. Shoj, go get that cleaned up immediately. Seriously, a beast is just a beast. If my cat did that, I'd have strangled it by now. Hey, the person above is being way too extreme. The cat is probably just stressed out. It didn't do it on purpose. But Guan, please go disinfect and bandage it quickly. We don't want you to be left with a scar, Aiki-suk. It's really no big deal. A little disinfectant and I'll be perfectly fine. Guanxuo casually reached for a cotton swab resting nearby, along with a bottle of hydrogen peroxide, starting to treat the wound right in front of the camera. That brave front he was putting on instantly triggered a wave of sympathy from his wealthy female fans. Guan is truly such a compassionate and patient soul. I can't even fathom it. If I were lucky enough to be Guan's girlfriend, if I were Guan's girlfriend, I would literally be the happiest woman alive. Wait, is it just me or am I tripping? I feel like I've seen this specific white cat somewhere before. Doesn't Shueishuo own a white cat that looks exactly like this one? Shuo fans, stop trying to clout chase, okay? Most white cats look identical anyway. Don't claim every white cat belongs to your master. Hasn't Shui Shui leached off our Guan Guan enough already? That little copycat thinks mimicking Guan Guan's room decor and buying the same furniture entitles her to some epic collab. She should focus on actually leveling up her own game and work harder to please her own viewers, instead of relying on these pathetic shady tactics, streaming only once a week, with zero original content. She's just desperate to ride everyone else's coattails. This time she didn't even show up for her weekly slot, claims she's sick or whatever. Even as an old fan, I'm officially done with her. The chat was popping off, but no one noticed that I'd been staring intently at the screen since the cat appeared. To the viewers, I just looked like I was zoning out. The rich, fishy babe just dropped a fortune in gifts. Isn't this rookie streamer even going to say thanks? Or is she just shell-shocked from seeing that much money for the first time in her life? Can someone calculate exactly how much the big sister spent? The most expensive gifts on Douyu are usually only seen once in a blue moon, within the rooms of top-tier celebrity streamers. Who knew we'd witness it first in a newbie's chat also? Damn, that looks like 50 or 60,000 already. The wealthy donor remained silent, likely just busy spamming those gift buttons. Hope those new manicured nails are holding up. Eat. Babe, my nail art skills are top tier. How about I slide into your DMs and we exchange info? Good grief. Now we've got people running ads in the chat. My bad, guys. I need a quick bathroom break. While my viewers were in the heat of a massive debate, I abruptly stood up, dropping that casual excuse before vanishing from the frame. The audience was left staring at the screen with 1,000 questions. Wait, did she seriously just walk out like that? We're literally in the middle of a PK, at the absolute climax where the winner is about to be crowned. She just casually, at the most critical moment of the entire battle, just glided away without a care in the world. Honestly, I'm kind of digging this vibe. I absolutely love how this rookie streamer treats a high-rolling big sister, and us broke-as-hell viewers with the exact same level of nonchalant indifference. Guantu, having just finished sanitizing his scratch, was momentarily stunned by my behavior. The same realization began to dawn on him. Streamers like them might call themselves influencers, but deep down, they're just digital panhandlers with better lighting. Between the dancing, the constant pandering, and occasionally having to appease the heavy spenders by meeting them offline just to keep the tips flowing, even though Guanchuo had crossed the 1 million follower mark. What did that actually guarantee him? He'd witnessed mega influencers with tens of millions fall from grace and get cancelled into oblivion overnight, becoming completely irrelevant. So seeing my unbothered attitude, Guanchuo actually felt a strange, inexplicable surge of envy. I said I was going to the bathroom, but I was back in less than 3 minutes. I returned with a beaming, apologetic smile. Sorry about that. I guess I just drank way too much water earlier. Only upon my return did I realize the PK had officially ended. The final score against Guanchuo was 620,000 to 300,000. I had doubled his score, a total blowout, converted into platform currency that was over 60,000 yuan, nearly all of which came from I Love Eating Fish alone. My eyes sparkled with feigned delight as I took a sharp breath, flashing a sugary sweet grin at the camera. Fishy big sister, you're the best. Finger hearts sending all the love. I started throwing out every heart gesture I could think of. Since it was my first time, the moves were a bit clumsy. But through the lens, you could tell the girl's unbridled joy and genuine gratitude were on full display. Seeing himself actually lose to a literal nobody, Guansisuo's expression turned incredibly sour. But it was only for a fleeting second, before he quickly masked it with a fake smile. Congratulations, Xiaonan. Oh, Shoj, I'm so sorry, I said, feigning apology, though the triumphant grin on my face was impossible to hide. I picked up my secondary phone, a used device I'd scavenged from a senior for $100, back before I started my delivery gig. Xiaonan had us entered the room. Xiaonan gifted the host holding a sign for you ×1. My deepest apologies. Shoj, but I'm just a broke rookie streamer. I hope you won't mind this little bit of compensation. I waved my beat-up second phone at the camera, signaling that I had already sent over the pity prize. Guanxuo was speechless. This wasn't compensation. It was basically treating him like a beggar. Did he look like he needed her measly 19.9 yuan? Yet my current livestream setup screamed destitute in every single frame. As a superstar with over 1 million followers, if he made a scene now, he'd just look like a petty jerk. Guanxuo gave a forced laugh. It's fine. As expected of Shuoj. A top-tier streamer really has class. I flashed a big thumbs up toward the lens. Guanxuo couldn't quite put his finger on why, but he had a nagging feeling I was insulting him. To show my appreciation to Shuoj, I'll make the penalty nice and easy. I tilted my head and smiled, cupping my face. Your penalty is to take the elevator down to the lobby right now, and then hike all the way back up to your flat via the fire stairs. Guanxuo lived on the 9th floor, for a fitness freak like him who lived in the gym. 9 flights of stairs was a walk in the park, but calling this a light penalty was a stretch. before Guan Shuo could even get a word out. His rabid fanbase had already seen enough. Being poor is one thing, but being this spiteful is another. Typical low-class behavior making trouble for no reason. Our Shuoji's hand is literally bleeding, and this person actually wants him to climb stairs. This is a joke. Does she really think we fans are just going to sit here and watch? Taking advantage of our Shuoji's kindness. Just to bully him like this. Listen up, sisters. This little streamer is from Hangcheng, right? How dare she talk such absolute nonsense? I bet she doesn't have a single friend in real life. My secondary account had already exited Guan Shuo's room, so naturally I couldn't see the toxic bullet chat, though I could easily guess they were dragging me through the mud. Seeing Guan Shuo remain silent, I smirked and offered a compromise. If Shuoj finds climbing the stairs too bothersome, then why not perform one of your specialty dances instead? In reality, Guan Shuo wanted to dance even less, especially with me watching his every move. I'll stick with the stairs. I actually wanted to head down for some exercise anyway. Guan Shuo forced a smile. This penalty really isn't harsh. Not heavy at all. Thanks for being so considerate, Xiaonan. I nodded with a playful grin. You're very welcome, Shoji. Seeing that Guan Shuo had already agreed to the terms, his fans finally stopped their relentless complaining. As for Guan Shuo's penalty, the layout of his luxury apartment complex, or the surrounding environment didn't interest me in the slightest. I simply picked up my professional textbook from the side and began engrossed in reading once more. Guan Shuo was busy giving his fans a tour of the neighborhood, while sharing some of his interior design wisdom. His gaze swept across the split screen, only to see me reading as if nobody else existed in the world. Damn it, what kind of intellectual is she trying to play? For some reason, he just despised my very existence. So anything I did felt like a massive eyesore to him. He originally planned to interact with his fans for a while longer, but Guan Shuo lost all motivation. He just wanted to blitz through this penalty mission and cut the connection. He reached the fire escape. The stairwell was lined with large windows, flooding the area with ample light. Guan Shuo's climbing pace was surprisingly swift. But halfway up the climb, Guan Shuo faintly caught the wail of a distant siren. His movements jerked to a sudden sharp halt. He focused his ears, but the sound didn't return, as if it had been nothing more than a fleeting hallucination. Shoj, what's wrong? Your face just turned pale all of a sudden. You look terrible. Are you feeling unwell? If you're feeling unwell, just forget about the penalty, especially since your hand is still injured and bleeding. Oh, please, his hand is injured. The scratch is probably already scabbing over by now. Besides, a cut on the finger doesn't stop your legs from moving, does it? If I could actually see that specific bullet chat, I'd definitely give those deluded fans a serious reality check. I glanced at the timer in the top left corner of the screen. Captain Nan and his team should be arriving any second now. I've certainly managed to stall for a significant amount of time. I'm perfectly fine. I probably just have low blood sugar since I skipped lunch. Guan Shuo forced a weak smile despite his deathly pale face. However, his pace unconsciously quickened even more, desperately racing up the steps toward his floor. I locked onto his suspicious behavior instantly, my fingertips drumming restlessly against the spare phone under the desk. If they don't get there now, the suspect is actually going to bolt. Xu Yuli finished replying to the message on my behalf, then turned to look at Nan Punian, who was behind the wheel. Do you really have that much faith in her? Back when my message first pinged his phone, Nan Punian had muttered to himself, how can you trust her so blindly? At the exact moment my text arrived, the task force was in the middle of a high-stakes briefing. They were investigating the identity of the dismembered victim, finalizing the next phase of their strategic discussion. Suddenly, Nan Punian's phone buzzed with a sharp vibration. The moment he scanned the content, Nan Punian didn't hesitate for even a heartbeat. He mobilized a tactical squad and moved out immediately. As a partner who had worked by his side for 3 years, Xu Yuli felt this move was dangerously impulsive and irrational. I don't know. Call it a gut feeling, he said, falling silent. As a rigorous, data-driven forensics expert, he only placed his faith in hard science. Concepts like intuition were far too vague and ethereal for him. If you end up arresting the wrong person, you're on your own when it comes to dealing with the bureau chief. Nan Punian smirked with a rogue-like grin. Don't sweat it. I won't make you write my apology letter this time. The black Humvee executed a flawless high-speed drift and screeched to a halt before the opulent gates of the luxury complex. This neighborhood wasn't even on the radar, based on the chemical trace found in the underground pipes. But that didn't rule out that Guan Xiaohuo might be the prime suspect in a completely different case. On the other end, Guan Shuo still felt a lingering sense of unease. Halfway up, he used his burner phone to message the property management, demanding to know if something had happened nearby. He was certain he had caught the faint wail of a siren. The building manager replied within seconds, claiming there had been a minor traffic accident just outside the complex. Seeing that message, Guan Shuo finally exhaled in relief. He looked back at my screen and asked with a smug grin, well, Xiaonan, does this count as mission accomplished? Yes. My lips parted slightly, and just as I was about to answer, A series of firm, deliberate knocks echoed through his door. Open up, police. Guan Sishuo's expression twisted instantly, and his heart sank into the depths of his stomach. If he weren't currently live streaming, he could have easily feigned that no one was home. But now forced to swallow his fear and pry the door open, two imposing figures suddenly barged into the view of his entire livestream audience. Holy crap, look at those two handsome hunks. Wait, is this some kind of surprise Shuoji planned for us? If Guan Shuo could still focus on the bullet chat right now, he'd definitely scream, surprise, are you freaking kidding me? Hello, you're Guan Shuo? Correct. We have reason to believe you're connected to a homicide case. Here's my badge and a warrant for your arrest. Please come with us to the station to assist in the investigation. Nan Punian's gaze swept across the phone stand on the shoe rack, locking eyes with me through the camera lens for a fleeting second. We shared a silent, subtle acknowledgement. Nan Punian even allowed his mind to wander for a fraction of a second, thinking, the girl wore makeup today. She actually looks pretty cute. Wait, that's a real. The girl wore makeup today. She's actually quite adorable. That's a genuine police ID, not some staged performance. That warrant is definitely not a prop. I can personally vouch for it. My older brother is a cop, and his badge looks identical to that one. If this isn't a skit, homicide Shuoji Guan Shuo is a murderer. Oh, the majority of the fans in his stream were only there for his looks. And while their morals sometimes faltered in the face of a pretty face, they were still rational human beings most of the time. When a criminal case of this magnitude is involved, nobody is stupid enough to claim that just because Guan Shuo is handsome, he couldn't possibly be a cold-blooded killer. After all, the police are literally at his doorstep. Seeing is believing, and there's no room for lame excuses now. The fans in my own live stream are debating even more fiercely than before, and right now, I'm like a fox. Oh, in a Harvey fight. Leaping with excitement and having the absolute time of my life. Man, this host's channel is actually legendary. Each scandal is more explosive than the last. That's it, I've made up my mind. I'm not going anywhere. From now on, this stream is officially my exclusive headquarters for top-tier drama. I love eating fish. Sent a message, host, did you actually hear something? A vibrant, dazzling bullet chat suddenly streaked across the screen. As the undisputed big boss of my donation leaderboard, every message from I Love Eating Fish comes with premium effects. I put on my most innocent face. Oh, really? I honestly have no idea what you mean. Internally, however, I was quite stunned. Is this wealthy big sister really that observant? How did she become so sharp? I Love Eating Fish was the only person among the thousands watching who managed to link Nan Punian's sudden arrival directly to me and my predictions. The truth is, I did hear something definitive. The exact moment that white cat lashed out at Guan Shuo, it was screaming, filth, monster, you're the one who killed mommy. You psycho, get your filthy hands off me. What followed was a series of gurgling, distorted growls from deep within its throat that were almost too vile to translate. But that first sentence was more than enough, even if I don't know exactly who Guan Shuo murdered. As long as the authorities conduct a deep dive investigation, they will absolutely force the truth out of him. Excuse me, officer, let me just say a quick goodbye to my fans. Since things had reached this point, Guan Sishuo knew he had no choice but to cooperate. He took a deep, shaky breath. Struggling to maintain a facade of normalcy, Nan Punian gave a thin smile and made a proceed gesture. Guan Sishuo turned back and waved weakly at the camera. So sorry, everyone. I have some private business to attend to. That's all for today's stream. Later, ladies, Guan Shuo waved. Seeing his composed demeanor, the fans in his live stream finally began to calm down. He's probably just helping with some routine inquiry, right? Hurry back to us, Guan Guan de. Bye-bye, Guan Guan. You better post an update as soon as you're safe, idiot. Even at this critical stage, hardly anyone took Nan Punian's grave warning seriously. A handful of viewers sensed something was terribly wrong. Yet, they lacked the guts to speak up in the chat, fearing a vicious backlash from the obsessed superfans. Ultimately, Guan Shuo was hauled away. The dual stream connection severed as soon as he went offline. I glanced at the clock. My 3 underclassmen roommates were about to finish their classes. As of this moment, I've been broadcasting for nearly 2 hours. My follower count has exploded past 10,000. And I've racked up over 30,000 in gift revenue. This has completely shattered all my initial expectations. I'm beyond satisfied with the results. Honestly, it's nothing short of a miracle. The timing is perfect, so I'm ready to end the stream. The sun hasn't even set and you're logging off, always see. Host, you're so young and vibrant. How can you possibly call it a night this early? How do you have the heart to leave us hanging? Come on, work harder, you're a youth. Host, do you even realize How many people are currently watching your stream? This is a once-in-a-lifetime goldmine of viral traffic, and you're treating it like absolute trash. Xiaonan, if you keep this up, you're seriously going to lose all your followers. Just as I was about to close the room, a fresh wave of curious onlookers and drama seekers came flooding into my channel. Having siphoned the audience from 2 major streamers, my current live viewer count actually peaked at a staggering 80,000. And keep in mind, these were all real-time viewers. Even for many well-established influencers, unless they have a cult-like following, hitting 80,000 live viewers is a pipe dream. Yet, here I was, logging off without a second thought. Darlings, you can see for yourselves, I'm currently streaming from my college dorm, and I really don't want to disturb my roommates. So there's no other way bye-bye for now. If I decide to go live tomorrow, I'll post a schedule in advance. Having said my piece, I ignored the fans' desperate pleas for me to stay and keep the hype going. Ignoring the barrage of 1 more hour comments from the chat, I resolutely and decisively ended the stream. Today was just a trial run to test the waters. From the very beginning, I cringed at calling viewers babes. But now the word practically rolls off my tongue effortlessly. I slapped my cheeks to snap out of it and opened the creator dashboard, my eyes sparkling as I stared at today's total earnings. The platform only allows withdrawals once a month, but that didn't stop me from staring at my account balance, admiring the numbers for a full 10 minutes. Finally, I checked my inbox. It was overflowing at 99 plus messages. Some were expressions of newfound love. Others were new followers. A few were salty fans hurling insults. And there were some truly unhinged, bizarre comments. Just from these DMs, I could see the full spectrum of human nature. I Love Eating Fish's account stood out among the rest. Hers was the only one glowing in vibrant colors. Even her private messages came with premium special effects. The top donor energy was absolutely off the charts. She had sent over a string of digits her phone number. I copied it into WeChat to find her profile. The top donor's avatar was the silhouette of a round, chubby orange cat from behind. Its massive back practically took up the entire frame. The cat's fur looked glossy and well-groomed. One look was enough to know it was living its best life. In my past life, I often contemplated getting a pet, but ultimately decided against it. My work was simply too chaotic, and my schedule was a complete mess. I couldn't commit to a routine of feeding and companionship. Who would have thought that I'd now have such a miraculous connection with these adorable, fluffy little creatures? I tapped into her moments. Her most recent post was unsurprisingly another cat flex. I sent her a cute sticker of a kitten munching on a fish. I love eating fish, instantly replied with an equally adorable emoji. What am I supposed to say next? I stared at the empty text box feeling completely stumped. Small talk has never been my forte, but the Streaming for Dummies guide said, maintaining a solid bond with high-rolling VIPs is crucial, because in future streams, those whales will likely be the absolute backbone of your channel. Thankfully, she didn't leave me hanging for too long. Before texting heading to work, effectively ending the awkward sticker battle. I exhaled in relief and sent a polite, get that bread. Before closing the chat, managing a top-tier sugar sister is honestly more exhausting than streaming itself. Right then, I heard movement at the door. Peng Yuan and the other 2 entered the dorm laughing, only to look completely stunned to find me there. Peng Yuan asked, confused, Senior, aren't you out doing delivery runs today? Ever since they met me, they almost never saw me around during the day. Seeing me in the dorm while the sun was still up was rare. Once Peng Yuan and I got closer, she realized I was hustling as a delivery driver daily, always appearing as if I was desperately strapped for cash. Because of that, the 3 of them had chatted for hours about my situation. Yeah, I said, pulling back my curtain while they were all present, taking the chance to mention my plan to start streaming from our dorm room. Don't worry, I assured them. I won't let any of you catch a stray on camera. I'll usually stream in the afternoons and head out on weekends, so I won't be a nuisance to your schedules. I'm well aware that not everyone enjoys being exposed to the digital world, even if the audience is just a handful of people, since privacy is a sensitive issue. I felt it was best to give them a heads up to avoid any unnecessary friction or drama down the line. The 3 of them showed no signs of objection, feeling that my proposal was incredibly considerate. Peng Yuan even joked with a bright grin. When you become a superstar streamer with millions of fans, and you need a personal assistant, make sure I'm the first one you call. I chuckled. Alright then, I'll have to work extra hard. They were all tactful enough not to pry about what kind of content I was making, or which platform I was using. I truly appreciate this kind of respectful boundary setting. It keeps things from feeling awkward. Without being too cold, it's just the perfect balance. By the way, Senior, are you going to be streaming every day now? What about this Saturday and Sunday? Because we were planning to head over to the Hangcheng Zoo this Sunday to see Hua Hua. Do you want to tag along with us, Senior? If you bring your student ID, the tickets are half off, Buck. Hua Hua was Hongqing's most famous celebrity panda, Peng Yun had absolutely no idea that her senior was already a budding little millionaire. She intentionally added that last bit about the discount. Terrified, I declined the invitation because the tickets were too pricey. I glanced over at the other two underclassmen and saw them looking at me with pure expectant puppy eyes. After a brief moment of thought, I nodded. Sure. Let's all head out together. At the recording site for Beijing's Polygon Actor variety show. The dressing room door was suddenly pushed open from the outside. Wei Yu looked up to see who had entered and greeted him with familiar warmth. Brother Sinian. Nan Sinian was draped in a khaki knit paired with a black trench coat, making his imposing stature and aura even more prominent. A pair of silver-rimmed glasses partially obscured his flirtatious peach blossom eyes, concealing the gaze behind those captivating peach blossom eyes. It inexplicably brought a specific term to mind, the dapper devil. The recording is starting in a few minutes, and you're still obsessing over your cat Yu Dan. Yeah. Nan Sinian pulled the door shut behind him and caught a glimpse of Wei Yue's phone screen. He was checking the surveillance feed of his apartment. On the monitor, a massively overweight orange tabby stood motionless by the giant floor-to-ceiling window, its back radiating an aura of profound loneliness and gloom. Yeah, he barely touched his kibble again today, and he didn't even finish half his wet food. Wei Yu set his phone down, his voice laced with genuine fretful anxiety. Nan Sinian's lip twitched. Isn't it a good thing he isn't eating? What kind of kitten is actually that obese? Eating less is basically a diet, isn't that exactly what he needs? However, he wisely kept those thoughts to himself. He didn't want the younger man to snap at him in a panic. Wei Yu looked up at Nan Sinian sitting across from him. Brother Nian, how's your little turtle doing? Unlike a total cat slave like Wei Yue. Nan Sinian wasn't exactly an animal lover. He only kept a single pet turtle, and that was only because a fortune teller suggested it, claiming that raising a turtle would boost his feng shui. He only begrudgingly decided to raise one for the sake of luck. It just stays there, eating and sleeping day in and day out. Nothing like his restless owner. Nan Sinian pinched the bridge of his nose. Truthfully, his schedule hadn't been that packed lately, with almost all his gigs being right here in Beijing. He was usually back home every night before 10 p.m., yet for reasons he couldn't explain. He hadn't caught a decent night's sleep in days, in that hazy state between dreams and reality. He constantly felt like someone was lurking watching his every move. Upon waking up the following morning, he would obsessively check the security footage, only to find absolutely nothing out of the ordinary. This bizarre cycle had been dragging on for nearly half a month. Nan Sinian had even cancelled several major appearances, just so he could get some proper rest and recalibrate. Instead, the dark circles under his eyes only grew heavier by the day. Nan Sinian never imagined he'd find himself actually jealous of a turtle's life if this insomnia continued any longer. He was genuinely worried he'd suffer a total nervous breakdown. Once the segment finished recording, he'd definitely have to make time for a hospital checkup. Brother Sinian, Nan Sinian was lost in thought when he heard Wei Yue speak up once more. Do you actually believe that in this world? There are people who can understand the language of animals. Have you been scrolling through those weird clickbait short videos again? Nan Sinian sighed. Understand animal speech. Did you fall down another one of those bizarre rabbit holes on social media? Nan Sinian looked at Wei Yue with a face full of judgment. The lad was 3 years his junior, yet he was the youngest Huabiao Award winner besides himself. The Nan and Wei families were old business associates, and the head of the Wei clan, faced with a son who dreamed only of the silver screen, could only ask Sinian to discreetly look out for the boy. Over time, the two had become close friends, and after getting to know him, Sinian realized the kid was nothing like his on-screen persona. In movies, the boy could play a ruthless two-faced villain so convincingly that it was chilling, portraying darkness with bone-deep precision that left the audience shuddering in fear. Even now, the internet is flooded with memes about how Wei Yu is a man of few words and terrifying actions. But in the real world, Wei Yu is just a naturally ditzy who is absolutely obsessed with scrolling through short videos. He'll watch literally anything that pops up, and he's particularly addicted to those $9.90 free shipping gadgets. Nan Sinian felt that by the time Wei Yu grows old, he'll definitely be the type to get scammed by health supplement ads. It wasn't a short video, it was a live stream. Wei Yu muttered, looking guilty. Great, he's leveled up his addiction. Nan Sinian sighed. How much did you blow this time? The pile of $9.90 junk in Wei Yue's house was already stacked as high as a small mountain. Sure, the individual prices were dirt cheap, but the sheer volume was astronomical, according to his assistant. Wei Yuk had already wasted nearly 100,000 on buying all that useless crap from Douyu. Wei Yu averted his eyes, muttering in a low voice, not that much. Just about 60 or 70,000. Nan Sinian's face was a total question mark. You bought what? 60 or 70,000 really wasn't a fortune. For someone like Wei Yue, it was basically pocket change. But Sinian was terrified he'd just dragged more trash home. I didn't actually buy any physical items this time. I just topped up my account to send gifts to a streamer. The youth flashed a shy, bashful smile. Nansinian suddenly had a realization and asked tentatively, was it a female streamer? The boy nodded. Nansinian felt like he finally understood the situation. You didn't use your official verified account, right, T? Of course not. Wei Yue shook his head. Wei Yu shook his head firmly. He wasn't that clueless about the industry. He always used a secret Smurf account to browse videos. That's good, Sinian paused. Gift her if you want, I guess. But know when to draw the line. Don't get too carried away. Xiaonan said the exact same thing. Oh, by the way, Xinyange Xiaonan can actually understand animals. When she goes live tomorrow, do you want to watch her stream with me? She is genuinely incredible. Wei Yu extended the invitation. He was the type who loved to share his finds. In Wei Yue's eyes, I was a girl with extraordinary talents. So he couldn't resist wanting to share the discovery with Nansinian, hoping more people would witness how amazing I was. No thanks, I've got things to handle tomorrow. Watch it yourself. Nansinian had already booked a private doctor for tomorrow. Moreover, he genuinely had zero interest in the world of live streaming. Well, the fact that Guanshuo was hauled off by the cops, right in the middle of his broadcast, shot straight to the #1 spot on Douyu's trending list, while most of the internet trolls were busy swooning over the handsome police officers. They were also dying to know exactly what crime Guanshuo had committed. Soon, the more perceptive gossip hounds realized that the two biggest scandals on Douyu's hot search today seemed to involve the exact same mystery girl. Following the trail to her profile, they discovered that this little streamer's account was actually created just today. Talking to animals, understanding their voices. Let's follow and see if she's legit or just a fraud. On the vast expanse of the internet, there is never a shortage of drama-hungry spectators. Follow now so I can claim I'm an OG fan later. I had no idea that even 2 hours after Guanshuo went offline, he still hadn't replied to a single fan message. As the situation continued to ferment and blow up, I actually gained nearly another 10,000 followers. Meanwhile, at the Qingshan Criminal Investigation Division, Captain Nan, we've scrutinized Guanshuo's social circles, and it seems his ex-girlfriend Wang Sui has vanished. Li Feng handed the thick file over to Nan Punyan. Nan Punyan took it and flipped through the pages rapidly, his sharp gaze finally landing on Wang Sui's profile. The reason they could confirm her disappearance so quickly was primarily because Wang Sui, just like Guanshuo, was also a full-time streamer. The reason they confirmed she was missing so fast was simply because she and Guanshuo shared the same profession. However, her main platform was Bilibili, focusing mostly on gaming content. She occasionally uploaded high-skill gaming highlights to TikTok, but those posts had gone completely silent recently. Based on this, Li Feng deduced that Wang Sui was likely missing. Did you try calling her? I did, but it just rings with no answer. What about her phone's GPS location? Li Feng blinked, stunned. We haven't tracked that yet. Check if we've made contact with Wang Sui's family yet. Nan Punyan ordered as he strode toward the interrogation room. We actually did reach them, Li Feng replied, but then he paused, as if a troubling thought had crossed his mind, his entire face scrunching up in visible distaste. But what, get to the point. According to her family members, Wang Sui hasn't reached out to them in a very long time. By the sounds of it, her relationship with her kin seems beyond strained. Strained is a massive understatement, Li Feng muttered. When I placed the call and mentioned the name Wang Sui to them, before I could even finish my sentence, I was met with a savage, unrelenting barrage of verbal abuse. When I suggested that Wang Sui might have met with foul play, the woman on the other end didn't flinch. She simply raised her voice by several octaves, her tone becoming incredibly sharp and piercing. Then let her rot and die out there for all we care. Don't you dare come looking for us regarding her business. And then click, they slammed the phone down. Judging by Li Feng's grim expression, Nan Punyan had already guessed the gist of it. He had handled plenty of cases over the years, witnessing the cold indifference of people and the darkest facets of the human condition. Oh, one more thing, Captain. Wang Suo has a distinctive bird tattoo on her left calf. Nan Punyan's footsteps came to a jarring halt, and he whipped around to face Li Feng, his dark eyes turning cold and heavy. Repeat that. What did you just say? Li Feng stammered as he repeated the detail. Why on earth did you wait until now to mention this? Nan Punyan took a sharp, jagged breath. Why didn't you lead with that before the interrogation? Nan Punyan inhaled deeply to steady his nerves, and after dropping those words, he pivoted sharply, racing toward the forensic medical examiner's office. Li Feng scrambled to keep up with his pace. His brain simply hadn't connected the dots in time. Before being scolded by the captain, Li Feng had treated the Guanshiko investigation and the dismemberment as two entirely separate, unrelated crimes, while gathering evidence for each. As for why he suddenly remembered the left leg, it was because Wang Sui had once posted a set of professional artistic photos on her feed. Among those aesthetic shots, there was a striking close-up of that bird tattoo. The moment Li Feng saw it, a faint suspicion began to brew in his mind, though he couldn't quite pin it down at the time. Only now did it finally click. This was almost certainly the same gruesome case. The investigation kicked into high gear, and before they knew it, 4 hours had vanished. Guansu had been left to rot in the interrogation room during those entire 4 hours, with only a rookie officer dropping by once to offer him water. Finally, after 4 grueling hours, the heavy iron door groaned and shuddered. As a towering figure stepped into the room, Guanshuo looked up, instantly recognizing the man who had personally hauled him into the station. Guansuku had overheard the rookie call him Captain Nan, though he didn't know which Nan it was. He felt like he was cursed by that name today. Start talking. Why did you murder? Wang Suo, Guansuku's eyelid twitched violently. His lips trembled as he prepared to utter a defense, but Nan Punyan ruthlessly cut him off. The fact that I'm asking you this should make one thing clear. The police already have the smoking gun. Right now I'm giving you a final shot at a confession. Saying this, Nan Punyan fixed him with a piercing stare. That cold, expressionless face made Guansuko's already fraying nerves completely unravel into sheer panic. His fingers clenched and unclenched repeatedly as he rasped out, "Officer, if I come clean, will I really get a lighter sentence?" When the message from Nan Punyan arrived, it was just past 9 in the evening. I had just finished drying my hair and collapsed onto my bed. After so many days in this world, this was the very first time I could truly savor a peaceful night of my own. No need to stress about delivery deadlines or angry customers giving me 1-star reviews. For the first time, I was enjoying such a relaxed, carefree evening to myself, free from the anxiety of late food orders or toxic customer feedback. I was just pondering which movie to watch when a WeChat notification popped up. Got a sec. Forensic Sue and I are downstairs at your dorm. The moment I laid eyes on that message, I pulled a total carp leap maneuver, bolting upright on my bed in an instant. The interrogation is already over. That was lightning fast. I stared at the screen, my fingers dancing across the glass. Coming down now. I hastily threw on a jacket, grabbed my phone, and sprinted downstairs. I was dying to know exactly who Guanshuo had murdered, and the grisly details of the case. Right now, Duyu is a total cesspool of wild rumors, and after skimming just a few posts, the algorithm trapped me. My feed was nothing but Guanshuo's face, and I was honestly about to lose my lunch. Now that a chance to learn the raw truth had appeared, there was absolutely no way I'd let it slip through my fingers. Reaching the ground floor, I scanned for Captain Nan and Shu. The dorm entrance was bustling with people coming and going, since Nan Punyan and Chu Yunli weren't the type to enjoy being stared at like zoo animals. They had retreated to a secluded corner, seeing me emerge from the main doors. They finally stepped out from the shadows. Nan Punyan asked, "You hungry? How about some late-night snacks BBQ? Or maybe a spicy dry pot?" Yeah. He didn't even give me a chance to decline. I tilted my head, looking at Nan Punyan with suspicion, then shifted my gaze to Shu Yunli, my eyes flickering with a hint of deep realization. I nodded. Actually, I am a bit famished. Let's go with BBQ. The three of us headed to Hongcheng University's Golden Street, even at 9:30 p.m. The place was crawling with students hanging out and grabbing late-night bites. I led the way to a legendary high-traffic BBQ stall. Our timing was perfect. A group had just vacated a table. The three of us took our seats immediately. Nan Punyan ordered a massive spread. I watched as he piled up 2 enormous baskets overflowing with skewers. My jaw dropped. "Isn't that a bit much?" Nan Punyan flashed me a weary smile. "Interrogating suspects is hard work. I haven't eaten since lunch." "Don't worry, we won't let a single scrap go to waste." His cold, handsome features were softened by the swirling grill smoke. For a fleeting moment, I actually detected a trace of gentleness and ease in Nan Punyan. I nodded in agreement. Totally." Nan Punyan, acting like a big spender, walked back to our small table with me, only to find Shu Yunli meticulously scrubbing the tabletop and stools with disinfectant wipes. In the nearby trash bin, a small mountain of used wipes had already piled up. "See, I told you there'd be a surprise." Coming out with forensic Sue means never worrying about germs. Nan Punyan, with total audacity, grabbed the stool Shu Yunli had just sanitized, pulled it out for me, and told me to sit. I shot a quick glance at Shu Yunli before slowly taking my seat, watching as Nan Punyan casually sat down himself. He fished a piece of gum from his pocket, popped it into his mouth, and after a couple of chews, he propped his head on his hand, leaning in with a playful, beaming smile. "Little Nan, you're dying to know what Guanshuo actually did, aren't you?" Since Nan Punyan had brought it up himself, I wasn't about to play hard to get. My eyes sparkled with curiosity as I looked at him. Am I allowed to know, for a non-investigator generally speaking, the answer would be a hard no. Nan Punyan kept that grin fixed on me, looking exactly like a big bad wolf eyeing Little Red Riding Hood, his gaze dripping with a certain mischievous intent. However, Nan Punyan unzipped his jacket and pulled out a paper contract, sliding it over. "If you sign this, then you'll have every right to know." Typical. I knew Nan Punyan wouldn't just drop by for no reason, especially since he's juggling 2 major cases. There's no way he'd be bored enough to hunt down a college student for a midnight snack. Turns out he had a hidden agenda all along. I took the document, and my heart skipped a beat when I saw the cover's special consultant. Take a look at the terms first. Nan Punian motioned for me to flip through the pages. I skipped straight to the salary and benefits section. Since it was a special appointment, the pay grade was naturally different from a regular officer. It's an off-the-books position, with a monthly base pay of $5,300. Aside from personal accident insurance, the standard social benefits and housing fund will be cashed out and dispersed directly with your salary. Furthermore, we guarantee that upon your graduation, you'll have a shot at transitioning into a permanent tenured role. We'll even provide housing for you in the meantime. These terms are actually superior to standard government perks. Normally, we deduct for the Social Security Fund, but if we did that now, you'd lose your status as a fresh graduate applicant. So we came up with this clever workaround instead, Nan Punian added from the side. He'd actually thought that far ahead. I snapped the contract shut and looked at Nan Punian with suspicion. The offer is incredible, but what exactly is expected of me? There's no such thing as a free lunch. The benefits mentioned here are arguably better than those of a full-fledged civil servant. Plus, I wouldn't even have to punch a time card every day. I'd only be assisting with specific investigations, essentially, and besides, I'm not required to clock in daily. My role is simply to assist in solving certain cases. In other words, I'd have total control over my schedule. And I'm not expected to rot away in the precinct all day long. I wouldn't have to worry about my working hours, clashing with my live streaming schedule at all. But what can I actually bring to the table? The contract mentions investigative assistance. But how am I supposed to assist? By using a Method 1 approach. I glanced over at Shu Yunli. Shu Yunli had finally finished sanitizing the last stool and sat down. Sensing my gaze, he looked up at me briefly, before shifting his eyes toward Nan Punian. It was obvious that even he hadn't expected Nan Punian to pull a move like this. He looked more like a glorified wingman dragged along by Nan Punian, and that was exactly the case. The moment they stepped out of the interrogation room, Nan Punian was struck by this brilliant idea. Only Nan Punian, who had the most contact with me, truly grasped just how insanely overpowered my ability to understand animal speech actually was. He realized he had stumbled upon a literal gold mine, and so without a moment's hesitation, he drafted an urgent request to the Bureau. As for the specific justification for this special consultant, Nan Punian didn't state it too bluntly. He simply claimed I possessed a unique affinity with animals. That would be an absolute game changer for investigations. With the Guanshuo case as a rock-solid proof of concept, and backed by Nan Punian's flawless track record over the years, the Bureau Chief greenlit the proposal almost instantly. Once the red tape was cleared, Nan Punian couldn't even wait until the next morning. He decided right then and there to rush to Hangcheng University. However, realizing it was getting quite late, and that a solo meeting with a young college girl might look a bit suspicious, he dragged the recently clocked off Shu Yunli along for the ride. So until this very second, Shu Yunli naively assumed that Nan Punian was just too shy to ask a girl out for dinner, and needed him to play the role of the wingman. He never imagined it was actually for a high-level recruitment. Nan Punian poured me some herbal tea to calm the nerves, and spoke up, "It's not a grueling daily grind. You just need to wait for a specific case to arise, or assist us in situations just like today." I asked, "By like today, do you mean cases like Guanshuo?" Nan Punian nodded solemnly. He knew today's success was largely a stroke of luck. But what if it wasn't just a one-time fluke? As the investigation deepened, they had uncovered a chilling detail. Guanxiu had filed for emigration just 3 days ago. Given his massive wealth and influential connections, in just 4 more days he would have vanished abroad, with a brand new green card in hand. That means, if it weren't for my intervention, they would have never been able to bring a murderer like Guanshuo to justice before he escaped. In fact, without my tip-off, they wouldn't have even found the dismembered remains so soon. By the time the stench of decomposition became impossible to ignore, or when the city maintenance crew finally inspected the clogged sewer lines and discovered the horror within, Guanshuo would have already fled to the other side of the globe. By then, with the remains severely decomposed, the difficulty of solving the case would have skyrocketed, not to mention the staggering amount of manpower and resources that would have been wasted. Deal, I'll sign it. Now that every single detail has been clarified, this contract is purely beneficial with zero downsides for me. Hesitating for even a second would be a total sign of disrespect to the money. A flicker of a smile danced in Nan Punian's eyes, as he handed me a fountain pen he had prepared long ago, acting as if he never doubted for a moment that I'd say yes. The contract already bore the official seal. The moment I scrawled my signature, it became legally binding. Consultant Nan, I look forward to a successful partnership in the days ahead. Captain Nan Forensic Sue? Please take good care of me from now on. Securing a stable job put me in an incredibly radiant mood. I beamed at Shu Yunli, who responded with a polite stiff nod. Nan Punian let out a chuckle, thinking to himself that this young girl in front of him was truly a perfect match for his team's vibe. Right at that moment, The owner brought out the first steaming platter of grilled skewers, after being swamped all day. Even the usually late-night snack-averse Shu Yunli listened to the two of us chat while he began to eat with slow, methodical precision. Inside a freezer at one of Guanshuo's properties, near Huaiming Road, we discovered Wang Xue's severed head and left leg. This particular property wasn't actually under Guanshuo's name. It was registered to his cousin. If my team hadn't conducted such a microscopic search, we might never have unearthed the gruesome smoking gun that stripped Guanshuo of any chance to talk his way out of a life sentence. Nan Punian walked me through the grisly details of the investigation, even while mentioning dismembered remains, severed limbs, and other Hulu Brothers-style horror terms. His tone remained completely casual, shoving a piece of grilled meat into his mouth. Delicious. I can't believe Guanshuo was actually the monster behind the dismemberment. I marveled at the sheer insanity of the coincidence. I was the one who found the remains, and I was the one who exposed Guanshuo. Given this level of irony, I seriously have to wonder, have I accidentally awakened some kind of cursed Detective Conan magnetism? Tell me about it, Nan Punian agreed. Even I was stunned. We assumed we were chasing two separate killers, but the deep dive proved it was the same depraved soul. In less than 24 hours, the victim's identity and the killer's capture were both signed and delivered. Within a mere 24-hour window, the victim's identity and the killer have both been fully exposed. This insane speed of solving the case completely shattered Nan Punian's previous career records. So what exactly was Guanshuo's motive for the murder? Hearing that the deceased was indeed Wang Sui, I instantly recalled a deep dive analysis post I'd read earlier. I've seen Wang Sui's photos before. She was a petite, adorable girl with a soft aesthetic. She used to stream over on Bilibili. Apparently she and Guanshuo seemed to have first crossed paths at an influencer gala about 3 years ago. They interacted quite frequently during that period, leading many to speculate wildly about whether the two were dating behind the scenes. However, neither of them ever officially confirmed the rumors. Back then, Guanshuo was just a mid-tier Douyu streamer with barely 100,000 followers. But then the thirst trap dance trend took over. Guanshuo pivoted from mukbangs to thirst trapping, and his follower count absolutely exploded. That's how he reached the massive star power he has today. Consequently, whenever rumors of Guanshuo and Wang Sui dating surfaced, his obsessive fans would go into a total frenzy. They'd raid Wang Sui's streams just to hurl vile insults, accusing her of being a clout chaser. Around that time, Wang Sui, who used to go live daily and drop a new video every single day, suddenly made an announcement. She was cutting her streams down to just once a week. Her social media content shifted from gaming clips to photos of home-cooked meals. The author of that viral post suspected that the two had definitely moved in together, and that Guanshuo's need for control was suffocatingly intense. He was a total misogynist who loathed the idea of his girlfriend being in the spotlight. This dynamic apparently dragged on until 6 months ago. The post even used video timestamps and screenshots to meticulously analyze the timeline, concluding that they most likely went through a messy breakup 6 months back. That thread was incredibly detailed and long, packed with visual evidence to back up every claim. It was logical, well argued, and the like count was absolutely astronomical. I had devoured every word of it at the time. Turns out that post was actually spot on. After listening to my detailed recap, Nan Punian arched an eyebrow and remarked with a sigh, "Man, there really are some absolute experts hidden among the public." According to Guanshuo's official confession, he and Wang Sui did indeed sever ties 6 months ago. Wang Sui was the one who pulled the plug. Guanshuo, consumed by resentment, couldn't accept it, stalking and seeking out Wang Sui countless times in private. Yet he couldn't even catch a glimpse of her. I suddenly recalled the words of Guanshuo's current girlfriend. She seemed convinced and suspicious that her boyfriend's ex-lover was the one obsessively clinging to him. She never imagined that the real obsessed stalker was Guanshuo himself. 5 days ago was there she never imagined. The one actually doing the harassing was Guanshuo. 5 days ago marked their former anniversary. Guanshuo lurked in the parking garage hoping to corner Wang Sui, only to witness another man escorting her home. In his twisted mind, Guanshuo concluded that Wang Sui's breakup with him was a premeditated scheme, convinced she had been cheating on him all along, fueled by months of being ignored and rejected. Blind rage took over as he tailed Wang Sui into her apartment, where he ultimately committed that horrific, brutal murder. Nan Punian recounted the whole story in one breath, before slamming back a large gulp of tea. I listened to the rest of it with a deep, troubled frown, as if anticipating the question on my mind. Nan Punian added, "He only started dating the new girl after splitting with Wang Sui." What an absolute double-standard piece of trash. He shamelessly jumped into a new relationship immediately. Yet, he couldn't stomach the idea of his ex moving on with someone new after 6 whole months. Nan Punian sighed, having solved cases for years. He had encountered his fair share of freaks. The distorted logic of people like this simply can't be understood through the lens of common sense. Guantishuo was just another one of those monsters. Anything else you're curious about? Consultant Nanto. Nanpunian had single-handedly demolished most of the BBQ, and before we knew it, 10:30 p.m. was fast approaching. The Hangcheng University dorms locked up at 11 p.m., meaning it was time for the girl to head back. No, I said, shaking my head. I've learned pretty much everything I needed to know. Then let's move, we'll walk you back to your dorm. Nanpunian stood up. By now, the Golden Street crowds had thinned out. A gentle night breeze swept through the air. The cool air gradually washed away the lingering scent of charcoal. Su Yunli, who had been silently demolishing his skewers, without uttering a single word throughout the meal, suddenly pivoted his head toward me. His eyes sharp behind his glasses were brimming with skepticism, as he asked with a rigorous and dead serious tone, "Can you truly decipher the language of animals?" I blinked in surprise for a second, then nodded. "So, what is that one saying right now?" Su Yunli raised a hand and pointed. I followed his finger, and spotted a lone rat, skulking along the edge of the sewer grate, looking incredibly shifty. I clarified, "I can understand them. But it's not actually saying anything right now." Hearing this, Shu Yunli snatched a wooden skewer from the table and expertly flicked it right at the rodent. It landed a direct hit on its tiny head. The rat let out a sharp, indignant squeak, its beady pea-sized eyes glaring viciously back at Shu Yunli. Shu Yunli pressed again, and now. My lip twitched. It's cursing you out, and it's being very vulgar. Based on that rat's glare, I could tell its insults were filthy. Yeah, he can see the pure malice in that rat's eyes. With that, Shu Yunli was finally a believer. When he looked at me again, there was a strange obsessive glint in his eyes. "So, would you let me draw a vial of your blood? I'd really love to study your biology in detail." Nanpunian, having just settled the bill for the drinks, overheard that creepy request as he walked back. He instantly shoved himself between us, physically walling off Shu Yunli from me. Nanpunian shot him a look of pure disgust, before turning to me. "Ignore him. He's just a total research nutcase." I hummed in response, and gave a small obedient nod. Shu Yunli didn't even get annoyed at being pushed away. He just walked calmly behind us. Yet those obsidian eyes of his never once strayed from me. Even after I retreated safely back to my dorm, I could still feel the lingering heat of Shu Yunli's intense burning gaze. The next morning, the very first thing I did upon waking was list my second-hand e-bike delivery box and uniform on the used goods marketplace. Because today, I am no longer the person I was yesterday. I'm officially a professional with a career now, so I never have to stress about basic survival again. So as a treat, I splurged on a $30 spicy stir-fry feast. By the time I returned, my roommates had already left for class. I gave my streaming corner a quick aesthetic upgrade and fired up the Douyu app. The moment I logged on, the system algorithm shoved the Hangcheng police notice right in my face. The announcement was brief, a straightforward clarification regarding the infamous Guanshuo case. It detailed the victim's identity, their past relationship, and the motive behind the murder. They used aliases like Mr. Guan and Ms. Wang. But for the netizens obsessively following the drama, it was painfully obvious who they were talking about. Holy crap, so those two actually were dating. Your priorities are trash. The real shocker is that Guanshuo looked so decent but was actually a total bloodthirsty monster. I used to be a fan of his back in the day, but his vibes started getting super creepy, so I unfollowed him. Who knew he was actually a straight up psycho? Netizens were swarming the comment section in a frenzy. After all, both parties involved were high profile influencers. A tragedy like this is bound to leave a bitter taste. However, one specific top-rated comment immediately caught my eye. It was a chilling perspective on the tragedy, one that made the skin crawl. That single most liked comment completely hijacked my attention. It was a massive wall of text posted by someone claiming to be Wang Xue's best friend. I read through every single word, feeling a heavy weight settle in my chest. I knew from Nanpunian that Guanshuo had hidden Wang Xue's left leg, specifically because of that distinct bird tattoo. But after finishing this comment, I finally learned the heartbreaking story behind the ink. Wang Xue was a runaway from a broken home. When she was only 18, her parents, desperate to fund her brother's dowry, tried to force her into a marriage in the neighboring village with a creepy bachelor nearly 40 years her senior. Wang Xue refused to be a pawn. She fled in the dead of night, relying solely on her own grit and hustle, to finally carve out the success she had today, 4 years ago, after hearing from a fellow villager that her parents were ill and living in utter misery. She softened her heart and began sending money back. Little did she know they would cling to her like leeches. It wasn't until her parents demanded she buy them a house that Wang Xue finally reached her breaking point, severing all ties with her family for good. That bird tattoo was inked during that very period. Wang Xue envisioned herself finally escaping her kin, longing to soar like a wild bird, toward the free and unfettered life she always craved. When she was with Guanshuo, Wang Xue was initially blinded by love, making countless sacrifices and changes for him, until she finally snapped out of her delusion and resolutely demanded a breakup. But Wang Sue never imagined, not even in death, that Guan Shuo would be so pathologically extreme. 6 months post-breakup, he was still stalking her relentlessly. In the end, she never got to be like that bird, unable to live out the life she had fought so hard for. I reached up to rub the corners of my tired eyes. In my past life, I dissected over 100 corpses. But even now, whenever I uncover the tragic stories hidden behind every case, my heart can't help but be deeply moved. The reminder alarm suddenly blared, and I took a sharp breath, purging all my negative emotions, before clicking the start stream button. She's live, she's live. First, good afternoon, wifey Xiao Nan Tit. Wifey, you look even more stunning today than yesterday. Beer seeds, water, and my front row seat are all ready, just waiting for the tea to be spilled. Chuot. Speaking of spilling tea, did everyone catch that massive Guan Shuo scandal? It totally blew my mind. How could he be so cold-blooded that after killing someone, he could still act that calm during a live stream? The moment I went live, dozens of viewers instantly swarmed the chat, seeing myself being called wifey Xiaonan and such. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but I didn't bother correcting them. After all their keyboards are their own, I can't control them. However, when I noticed my follower count had skyrocketed to 24,000, I couldn't help but feel a flicker of genuine shock. I clearly remember that when I signed off yesterday. I barely had over 10,000 followers to my name. Then the realization dawned on me. It was undoubtedly due to the Guan Shuo scandal blowing up. People must have tracked me down through those viral stream clips. I beamed at the camera and gave an enthusiastic greeting. Welcome to all the new bays joining the stream. Smash that follow button so you don't lose your way. OMG, she called me bae? She definitely loves me, it's official. Bro, upstairs, go find a mirror and humble yourself. If you can't, I'm happy to provide a reality check. Or you can just consult me directly. Glancing at the chaotic barrage of comments, I navigated to the backend settings to disable the mandatory PK button. Once a creator hits the 10,000 follower milestone, this feature unlocks automatically. I clicked confirm without hesitation. Yesterday's 2 PK battles did indeed bring some unexpected windfalls, but personally, I'm not a fan of that high pressure mode. They call it a battle, but in reality, it's just an aggressive cash grab. When the hype in the room reaches a fever pitch, even a passing dog would feel pressured to drop a donation. But once the adrenaline fades and the brain cools down, most people end up drowning in regret. That kind of emotional whiplash can easily push people to extremes. I'd much rather play the long game and stay grounded. Relying on that whiplash effect is just too dangerous for the psyche. I prefer a more steady and solid approach. Gimmicks only keep you relevant for a moment, but quality content is what makes a creator truly last. Just as I was thinking this, a flashy, colorful notification popped up. I Love Fish has entered the room. Good afternoon, Sister Fish. I waved at the camera, greeting her with a bright smile. I Love Fish sent a message, are you busy right now? Is it a good time to go live together? Seeing this request, I was slightly taken aback. I nodded. Totally, it's fine. Sister Fish, if you're not comfortable showing your face, we can just do an audio-only connection. During yesterday's broadcast, it seemed I Love Fish had been itching to connect since yesterday, but because they were likely harboring some skepticism, they held back from joining the mic. The moment I went live today, they finally made their move. I have a gut feeling that beyond actually needing my pet consulting services, they're also trying to flex a bit and set the tone for the rest of the chat. As soon as the message appeared, the request for a voice link popped up accepted. A faint static hum crackled through the speakers, followed by a voice that was strikingly smooth and clear, carrying a refreshing chill tempered with a hint of warmth. Hello there, little Nan. Can you hear me all right? I froze. The voice clearly belonged to a guy. Little Nan, the voice of I Love Fish called out again. I snapped back to reality. Though I Love Fish had requested a video connection, the camera remained strictly blacked out. In my head, I let out a triple holy crap. I never suspected for a second that I Love Fish was a dude. I'd been calling him Big Sis this whole time and he never even corrected me. The person on the other end gave a soft hum, followed by a crisp muffled smack sound, remarkably similar to a hand gently patting against a solid fleshy surface. My mind involuntarily flashed back to the photos I'd seen on his social media feed. That massive chunky orange tabby. Meow. A dainty high-pitched cry rang out. Fishball. Tell daddy, why haven't you been eating your meals lately? The voice of I Love Fish echoed once more. Fishball, tell daddy, eh? Why have you been skipping your food these past few days? His voice cut through the stream again. He was attempting to have a heart-to-heart with his cat. The little kitty seemed to be quite the chatterbox, even though its tone sounded incredibly annoyed. It still kept up the back-and-forth dialogue with its owner. Neither human nor cat could actually understand each other's language, yet the scene was oddly harmonious. I propped up my chin and listened intently to the exchange. After a few rounds of meowing and questioning, I finally grasped the reason behind the kitty's depression. Honestly, it was nothing major. Essentially half a month ago, this chunky orange tabby went out for a stroll with I Love Fish and crossed paths with a stunning little female cat. The lady cat totally body shamed him for being too obese, treating him with nothing but pure disdain, and instead threw herself at a sleek tabby cat. The orange chunk was absolutely devastated, which is why he's hell-bent on losing weight. He wants to win her back and reclaim his shattered dignity. However, genetics are a cruel mistress. Even though he's cutting back on his regular kibble, behind his owner's back and out of sight, he's been secretly binging on hidden snacks. Hearing the epic saga of this little fatty scheme, I was caught between a laugh and a facepalm. Just as I was about to reveal the truth to I Love Fish, I suddenly picked up on a very faint, incredibly frail and ancient-sounding voice. So annoying. I absolutely loathe kittens with zero sense of boundaries. And that person lurking inside the ceiling, doesn't let me get a wink of sleep at night. I froze, asking in total confusion, Brother Fish? Besides the cat, are there any other animals in your house? Other animals, I Love Fish? Echoed, momentarily stunned by the question. Oh right, I'm actually not at my own place right now. I'm over at a friend's house. He keeps a pet tortoise here. That explains it, I whispered, a spark of clarity in my eyes. But then my brow involuntarily furrowed in worry. If that ancient weary voice was indeed coming from the tortoise, then what the hell do those words mean? If that frail voice belonged to the tortoise, then what was the true meaning behind its complaint? A person hiding in the ceiling, I suppressed my growing dread, tentatively asking, so is your friend home right now? Are you guys having dinner together today? No, my friend had some business and headed out. He asked me to drop by and feed his tortoise. We live quite close to each other, though confused by the sudden interrogation. He still answered my questions with total honesty. So what you're saying is, well, it's just you and the kitty in that house right now. Yeah, that's right. Why, what's up? Wei Yu was sharp enough to realize that the line of questioning I was taking had suddenly veered far beyond a simple pet consultation. He didn't get the vibe that I was intentionally prying into his personal life. Instead, he suspected that I might have overheard something unsettling. It's nothing major, I said. It's just that kittens in an unfamiliar environment can get a bit stressed and reactive. So I was thinking, once you're done feeding the tortoise Brother Fish, maybe you should take your kitty back home. It would be much better for the little guy's mental well-being. Once he's relaxed, he'll be way more talkative. I flashed a bright smile at the camera, keeping my facial expression perfectly composed. But off camera, my hands were resting on my lap, fingernails digging sharply into my palms, as I fought to keep my tone, sounding exactly as calm as it was before. Wei Yu fixed a long, searching gaze on the girl on his screen. Even though he couldn't fathom what was going on, he instinctively decided to trust me. It was a sudden, overwhelming wave of confidence that felt completely unearned yet absolute. Wei Yu stood up, scooping up the chunky orange tabby and heading for the exit. The sound of the door opening and clicking shut echoed, followed by the rhythmic thud of slippers on the floor and the mechanical chime of the elevator doors. Meanwhile, the viewers in the live stream were left completely in the dark about what was happening. They thought my request was incredibly bizarre, and some found it totally nonsensical. The trolls and skeptics even began to doubt whether I actually possessed the gift of animal speech, or if this whole thing was just a carefully crafted persona I'd built for clout. As for that high-profile connection from before, they chalked it up to being nothing more than a lucky fluke. The bullet chat was scrolling at lightning speed, but I didn't have the mental capacity to engage with it. Finally, Wei Yu's voice rang out again. I'm back. I glanced at the clock. It had been less than 5 minutes. They really did live close. It seemed I Love Fish, and his friend likely lived in the exact same building. The sound of his front door locking echoed through the mic, and I finally let out a long, shaky breath of relief. I double-checked with him immediately. Brother Fish, is that friend of yours? Are you absolutely certain you're the only one home? Wei Yu finally realized the gravity of the situation. His hand froze while tugging at the dog's leash. Yes, I'm sure, he stated firmly, in his original understanding of things. Brother Sai Nian should definitely be living alone. Brother Sai Nian is someone who guards his privacy obsessively. Even his own manager doesn't possess the security codes or fingerprints for his front door. The manager only ever sets foot in the residence when Brother Sai Nian is physically present. This time, it was only because Brother Sai Nian left in a rush and completely forgot to feed his turtle that he finally asked for a helping hand, providing him with a one-time temporary access code. Now that he had stepped out of Brother Sai Nian's apartment, if he wanted to re-enter the premises, he'd have to beg Brother Sai Nian for a new code. Otherwise, he'd be locked out for good. Wei Yue asked Xiaonan, did you hear some kind of bizarre noise? I spoke up directly. If it's at all convenient, you should probably ask your friend to return immediately. And while you're at it, call the police. Wei Yu and the livestream viewers were all left wearing stunned expressions. Wait, I've been in this stream the whole time, holding my phone even while in the bathroom. I haven't missed a single second. But why do I feel like Hold up, it's not just me, I've been watching the whole time. Clinging to my phone even on the toilet. Never looking away once. So why does it feel like I'm totally losing the plot? Bro, above, you're not the only one hallucinating. It feels like a massive chunk of the process was just cut out. Seriously, why do we need to call the cops? Can some big brain expert explain what's happening? Fortunately, while the audience was still drowning in a sea of confusion, Wei Yue snapped back to reality first and said, Xiaonan, I might need to mute my microphone for a second. Sure. Brother Fish, go ahead and make your call. This unconditional level of trust toward me was honestly quite gratifying. I thought to myself that even though the rich sis suddenly became a rich bro, our vibe wasn't awkward or cringy at all. Wei Yu kept the voice link active, but muted himself to dial Brother Xinian's number, regardless of whether I had misheard or not. But since the issue was brought up, Wei Yu figured it was better to be safe and do a thorough sweep. After all, Brother Xinian has been spending a lot of time home alone lately. Doctor, are you absolutely sure there's nothing wrong with me? At the elite private hospital under the Nan Corporation, Nan Xinian adjusted the silver spectacles on the bridge of his nose, while fixing his gaze on the physician across from him. Mr. Nan, based on your physical exam and psychological evaluation, your bodily and mental states are in peak condition. There are no detectable issues whatsoever. The doctor flipped through Nan Xinian's medical records, secretly thinking the man was far healthier than he was. Then why do I constantly feel like someone is watching me in the middle of the night? I sleep for hours, yet I wake up feeling utterly exhausted. There was even a time in that hazy state between sleep and waking, when I saw a figure standing by my bed staring down at me. If Nan Xinian weren't a die-hard rational materialist, he probably would have suspected a literal haunting by now. Nan Xinian's lips parted, about to press further into the mystery, when his phone suddenly blared. He glanced at the incoming call. It was Wei Yue. The ringtone echoed again, as he stared at the caller ID, confirming it was indeed Wei Yue. He pressed the answer button. What's up? Nan Xinian asked, confused. His immediate thought was that something had happened to his pet tortoise. Brother Xinian, are you finished with the doctor yet? Something has come up that needs your immediate attention. The police are already en route to your place. Don't worry, I've already cleared things with Sister Lu. The cops are familiar faces. This won't turn into a public scandal. Wei Yue's voice crackled through the line, but the words he uttered left Nan Xinian completely baffled and lost. Nan Xinian frowned. What on earth is going on, Ugh? Why are the police getting involved in this? Wei Yu lowered his voice. Brother Xinian, don't freak out, but there might be someone else hiding inside your house. While waiting for Wei Yue to get back online, several other people sent in requests to join the stream. I didn't accept any of them. To all my bays who need a consultation, you can reapply once Brother Fish's situation is resolved. I'm temporarily disabling the connection request for now. Since I Love Fish was still in the middle of a crisis, I obviously wouldn't let anyone else jump the queue. Wei Yu hadn't spoken for a while, but I wasn't in any rush. I simply picked up my finance textbook and started reading. Genuine question. Is the viewer count in this room fake or something? Why is everyone watching a streamer read, did I click the wrong link? This isn't some study with me stream, right? How are there so many people camping here? The veteran viewers who had been lurking through the earlier dialogue finally put the pieces of the puzzle together. The streamer actually sniffed out a home invader at a friend's place. The audience members who initially thought the conversation was getting a bit tedious and boring instantly felt a massive surge of adrenaline. They were on the edge of their seats, impatiently waiting for I Love Fish to come back online. A drama this juicy was definitely worth the wait. This anticipation meant that even though I was just studying, the live viewer count remained sky high. This eventually triggered Duyu's promotion algorithm for trending rookie rooms, launching my stream directly onto the front page. A wave of fresh viewers came flooding in, only to find me silently reading, since the OG fans were holding their breath and staying quiet. The new arrivals were naturally confused. She's literally just reading. The old fans are ghosting the chat. That's what prompted those skeptical questions earlier. Don't ask, just stay tuned. This tea is about to be piping hot. Satisfaction guaranteed, trust the process. Newbies hit that follow button in the top left corner. Follow the queen so you don't miss the climax. I bet my life that Xiaonan's room will never disappoint you. Before I even had a chance to explain, my loyal veteran viewers had already shifted into hype man mode. Watching the barrage of supportive comments, I was caught between a laugh and a sigh of disbelief. Anyone who didn't know the context would probably assume these old fans were paid actors I'd hired to shill for me. I'm currently in a live session with another viewer. Everything about my stream's content is detailed right in the channel's bio. Newcomers feel free to take a look at the profile. If you're still confused, just ask me directly. I offered a quick explanation right at that moment. Wei Yu's voice crackled through the line again. I'm here, Brother Fish. I glanced at the connection status. I Love Fish had finally unmuted his microphone. The police have arrived. They just conducted a meticulous sweep of the entire house, but they haven't found any sign of an intruder. Wei Yu was standing right at the entrance of Nansinian's home. The heavy iron security door swung wide open. He was clutching Fishball in his arms, a Bluetooth earbud hooked onto his left ear. Beside him stood a uniformed officer, appearing to be in his early 30s. Nansinian's manager, Sister Liu, had also rushed over ahead of schedule, her anxious gaze darting into the house every few seconds. Mr. Wei, are you absolutely certain there's someone lurking in this house? Officer Wang exchanged a skeptical look with his partner, who simply shook his head in response. They had already scoured the place twice, ensuring that not a single corner was overlooked. Yet the intruder Wei Yue reported was nowhere to be found. If Officer Wang hadn't been old classmates with Sister Liu, he would have seriously started questioning if this young movie star had finally lost his mind. In a crisis like this, he was actually still watching a live stream, and from the looks of it, it seemed he only suspected a home invasion because some female streamer had planted the idea in his head. Through a computer screen across the internet, how could this streamer be so damn sure? Does she have some kind of supernatural X-ray vision? Or is she just another con artist running a fortune-telling scam? The most baffling part wasn't the prophecy. It was that Wei Yue believed her without a shred of doubt. I'm certain, Wei Yue replied with a face of steel. Officer Wang felt that once this movie star got older, he'd be the prime target for every insurance scammer in the city. I overheard their entire conversation and spoke up to remind them the ceiling. Check the ceiling. Have they checked inside the crawl space yet? Wei Yue immediately relayed my words to Officer Wang. Officer Wang replied with thinning patience. Every accessible panel has already been opened and inspected. It's virtually impossible that someone could have snuck in while Nansinian was away and literally burrowed a hole into the ceiling to hide. The architectural structure of the ceiling is incredibly complex, and its load-bearing capacity is nowhere near strong enough. Besides, Nansinian's home is rigged with high-end security. If someone was actually drilling through walls, how could the motion sensors fail to trigger an alert? In short, Officer Wang felt that Wei Yue's theory was nothing short of a delusional fairy tale. It was a total impossibility. As for the remaining hidden spots, the only way to inspect them would be to tear the place apart. Officer Wang turned his gaze toward Wei Yue. Dropping a blunt question, Mr. Wei, can you actually authorize this, though? Don't you think you should consult your friend first? Officer Wang then glanced at his old classmate. Aware that Wei Yue was currently mid-live stream, he was careful not to leak Nansinian's high-profile name. No need, tear it down. Wei Yue made the final call. Sister Liu's lips twitched at the side, but in the end she chose to remain silent, simply giving Officer Wang a resolute nod. On the off chance there was a threat, Nansinian's physical safety far outweighed the cost of a renovation. Officer Wang couldn't believe Wei Yue was being this reckless, and that even Sister Liu had lost her common sense. He scanned the luxurious interior decor. Smashing all of this would likely flush hundreds of thousands down the drain. But hey, it wasn't his house, and it certainly wasn't his money, since he had already secured permission despite the massive financial loss. And since it wasn't his property, he wouldn't be the one footing the bill anyway. With the green light from both Wei Yue and Sister Liu, and the entire exchange captured on his body cam, he was legally protected from any future financial disputes or lawsuits. Officer Wang looked at his colleagues. Start smashing. Are they really doing it? What if the streamer misheard? Renovations these days are insanely expensive. If Brother Fish is this rich, his friend must be loaded too, right? If they wreck the place over a misunderstanding, can the streamer even take responsibility? As someone currently paying for my own home renovations, hearing that command made my heart ache for their wallets. Based on the calculated speed of sound conduction, and by calculating the echo's volume and timing, it can be estimated that the area of Brother Fish's friend's place is roughly 500 to 600 square meters. 600 square meters Brother Fish's IP is in the capital right. A 600 square meter luxury flat. There are only a handful of prestigious complexes that actually fit that description. With a demolition this massive, the damages are likely spiraling toward the millions. Watching the barrage of comments, I didn't offer any excuses, seeing that I wasn't being fazed by the noise. That's when I finally exhaled in relief, a faint involuntary smirk playing on my lips. Clattering and smashing sounds erupted through the mic, though the audience couldn't witness the carnage visually. Just hearing the destruction made their wallets ache in sympathy. Nansinian was still racing back home, where you surveyed the interior, clutching Fishball as he retreated a safe distance away. Even though Fishball had undergone excellent socialization training, this chaotic ruckus was still triggering a bit of a stress response. Wei Yu pulled up a chair and sat down, looking at me on the screen before speaking. Xiaonan, make me a channel moderator. Alright, I'll set I love eating fish as a moderator. Got it! Wei Yue grunted in response. Then, I watched as Wei Yue summarily banned over a dozen people because of his top donor status. Even the system messages for the bans were flashing in neon colors. I glanced over at the banned IDs. The system notifications were dazzlingly vibrant. I skimmed the list of names. every single one of them, was a hater who had been stirring up drama in the chat. I didn't expect I Love Eating Fish to remember every single troll, despite being strangers who hadn't even known each other for 48 hours. I felt a deep, long-standing connection between them. Even a cold heart would feel warmed by this. Thanks, brother Fish. Amped ass. I beamed, cupping my face in my hands. My eyes curved into crescent moons, radiating the playful charm typical of a girl my age. Wei Yu clearly adored my smile. He enjoys scrolling through short videos. But he's never been the type to get addicted. Aside from the occasional shopping spree for cheap $9.90 gadgets, he rarely ever tips streamers, especially not the female ones. He usually haunts live streams featuring deep-sea fishing or pearl harvesting. But yesterday, he stumbled upon my broadcast. His initial impression was one of pure serenity, a girl just sitting there, quietly poised before the camera, flipping through the pages of a book one by one. It was worlds apart from those staged performances. Wei Yu could instantly sense that I was genuinely deeply immersed in my reading. Then he glanced at my profile description, and his curiosity only intensified. Can she truly understand the language of animals? Driven by that lingering thought, he found himself instinctively lingering in this zero-star obscure little corner, where only a handful of people were watching. He witnessed me being forced into a PK battle, helping Gaba expose a hidden lover, and then connecting with Guanshuo, only to be ruthlessly attacked by Guanshuo's toxic fans. Suddenly his hand moved on impulse, recharging and showering me with gifts. Wei Yu is a seasoned actor. He can read the subtle micro-expressions and muscle movements of a face to discern if someone is authentic or just putting on an act. That's why he was so captivated by my raw, genuine reactions. The tension was real, palpable tension. The joy was unadulterated happiness. Even though the massive influx of donations brought a spark of joy, it was tempered by a sense of trepidation and unease. Wei Yu became addicted to this feeling, of his emotions being swayed by another. However, this sudden obsession looked like nothing more than a bewitching spell to outsiders. Not that Wei Yu had bothered explaining himself to anyone. After all, Xiaonan's unique charm, the very thing that enchanted him, wasn't for public consumption. As long as he recognized Xiaonan's worth, that was more than enough for him. Ding, the elevator door slid open with a chime. As Wei Yue rose to his feet, Nan Xinian stepped out into the hallway, noticing that Wei Yue was currently mid-live stream. He offered a subtle, polite nod in acknowledgement, initially when he heard Wei Yue mention a female streamer, who claimed his pet tortoise had ratted him out for hiding a secret person in his home. Nan Xinian thought the entire situation was utterly preposterous. In fact, he couldn't help but wonder if Wei Yue had completely lost his mind watching these streams, believing such a bizarre and outlandish lie. But Wei Yue's tone had been so incredibly certain. This forced Nan Xinian to involuntarily recall the agonizing insomnia and hallucinations of the past fortnight. The private medical facilities under the Nan Corporation are among the most elite in the entire nation. Nan Xinian refused to believe his doctors had botched a diagnosis. In other words, his physical health and mental stability were officially flawless. Yet simultaneously, Nan Xinian was absolutely certain that the spectral shadows he witnessed at midnight were no mere trick of the light. He had even begun spiraling into supernatural explanations. Just then, Wei Yue's call broke the silence. Upon hearing his words, deep within Nan Xinian's mind, a faint, mysterious voice suddenly resonated. Give Wei Yue's intuition a chance. What if at worst it was just a police report, costing him nothing more than some minor renovation repairs? At the very least, it would eliminate one nagging doubt. Thus Nan Xinian finally relented, handing over his security passcode to Wei Yue. Mr. Nan, Officer Wang greeted as the homeowner returned, offering a polite professional nod. So, officer, what's the verdict? Nan Xinian surveyed the chaotic wreckage within the room, inquiring with a sharp clinical tone. Holy crap, is this fish-eating bro's actual friend? His voice is absolute ear candy. Am I the only one who thinks fish-eating bro's buddy sounds exactly like the legendary best actor Nan? Yes, me too, me too. The second he spoke, I immediately pictured Film King Nan. There's no way this is actually the movie god himself, right? I glanced at the frantic scrolling of the bullet chat. The Film King, I recalled seeing clips of his movies before. Those high-octane highlight reels of a legendary actor. His full name is Nan Xinian, screen legend Nan. I'm pretty sure I've stumbled upon his films. Those iconic scenes featuring the award-winning actor. Full name Nan Xinian, word is he's a massive rich heir. The kind of silver spoon elite who, if he ever quit showbiz, would just inherit a multi-billion-dollar empire. However, I'm not really into the celebrity idol scene. The only reason I noticed him was because of his unique surname. But looking at it now, Nan Xinian and Nan Punyan. Don't those names sound exactly like brothers? Wait on Nan Xinian's official Baidu wiki page, there's no mention of him having. The fleeting thought of whether he had a brother vanished as quickly as it appeared. But because of Nan Xinian's sudden appearance, the live stream had completely erupted into absolute chaos. The viewers were spiraling into wild speculation. desperately guessing if this man was truly the legendary Nansinian. Nansinian, however, remained blissfully unaware of the online frenzy. Wei Yui caught a glimpse of the bullet chat from the corner of his eye and pursed his lips in a silent pout. He felt a twinge of petty annoyance. His own voice was incredibly distinctive and iconic. So why was nobody trying to unmask his identity? He was actually quite eager to have his big shot persona exposed before me. Officer Wang shifted his gaze toward the bathroom area, shaking his head as they had yet to discover any solid leads. Nansinian stepped toward the doorway, surveying the ceiling now riddled with gaping jagged holes. Chunks of plaster and shattered wallboards dangled precariously from above. The once elegant, minimalist aesthetic of his home had been utterly decimated and reduced to rubble. Even though the police had tried to be meticulous, thick layers of white dust were now blanketed over everything. He had been quite fond of this specific interior design. Nansinian clicked his tongue in silent frustration, mourning the loss of his pristine sanctuary. As the agonizing minutes ticked away, the luxury apartment transformed from high-end to post-apocalyptic wasteland. Even Officer Wang felt a pang of sympathy for the homeowner, imagining Nansinian's heart bleeding over the massive repair bill. Meanwhile, the primary culprit behind this destruction calmly stroked the cat with nonchalant indifference, seemingly oblivious to the sheer financial catastrophe his single suggestion had just unleashed. Suddenly, right at that moment, a thunderous authoritative shout echoed, "Don't move," followed by the heavy crashing sound of something hitting the floor. What happened? What's going on over there? I heard a massive crash that sounded serious. I'll see. Holy crap, did they actually catch someone? This is insane. Damn it, why won't they just turn on the camera? That noise was deafening. No way. Did they really find a stalker? This is too intense, man. Can't they just flip the camera around and let us get a single peek? The suspense is killing me. I need to see. I've got a feeling this tea is about to be piping hot. The audience, who had been growing restless and bored, jolted upright at the sound of the commotion, their excitement reaching a fever pitch once again. Officer Wang stood frozen for a split second, but he was the first to snap out of it, his expression hardening, as he charged deeper into the apartment. Hearing the explosive commotion, Nansinian couldn't help but slightly arch, his brow glancing toward Wei Yue's phone screen. He never imagined that girl's prediction would actually come true. Wei Yu locked eyes with him for a moment, before they both rushed inside, only to be met with the sight of a scrawny, stark-naked man, wearing nothing but a pair of filthy underwear, pinned down ruthlessly by two officers. Wei Yu's first instinct was to shield the camera lens, but halfway through, he remembered he hadn't even turned it on. He sighed in relief, worried my eyes would be scarred by the sight. Nansinian, meanwhile, knit his brows in pure disgust, scanning the restrained intruder with a piercing gaze, until a sickening realization hit him. The underwear that creep was wearing once belonged to him. Even the stoic and unflappable Nansinian, upon realizing that, for all these long nights, he had been stalked by this man, and his personal belongings violated, felt a wave of violent shivers, erupting across his skin like a breakout of hives. The repulsive man caught sight of Nansinian, and abruptly ceased his frantic struggling, staring with a terrifying obsessive gaze. "Movie god mode? I'm absolutely obsessed with you. I'm your ultimate superfan. I've watched every single one of your films, replaying them at least 100 times over. You're so breathtakingly handsome. I truly madly love you. Hubby, I love you." Hearing the kind of lines usually reserved for devoted fangirls, spewing from the mouth of a deranged man, was enough to make Nansinian's skin crawl with revulsion. Not to mention this freak had infiltrated his private sanctuary, to watch him sleep every single night. Nansinian felt his stomach do a violent somersault, his face turning a sickly shade of pale as he looked ready to vomit. "Officer Wang?" The officer glanced at Nansinian's horrified expression, his eyes flickering with a hint of genuine pity. Beside them, Wei Yue had already sensed the danger. As soon as that man blurted out those obsessive words, Wei Yue reacted with lightning speed and muted the microphone, barely managing to protect Nansinian's secret identity. If the media ever got wind of this insanity, there's no telling what kind of toxic headlines they'd manufacture. Film King Nan exposed. Hidden lover revealed is the movie god secretly gay. Superstar Nansinian caught living with secret boyfriend. Does the great actor Nan truly have such low standards? At that point, Sinian Ji would likely suffer a total mental breakdown. Rumors are spread by a single mouth, but debunking them requires a lifetime of running. Even though Wei Yue was still a relative newcomer, he was already well versed in the media's dirty playbook. "Movie god, don't you see? You are the only light in my miserable existence. I love you, Oppa. I love you more than anyone else in this world." The intruder continued his delusional confession of love, nearly breaking free from the grip of the two officers. His face was a mask of pure fanatical obsession. Nansinian's complexion grew even more deathly pale. "We've secured the suspect, so we'll take him back to the station for immediate processing." Officer Wang's mouth twitched as he addressed Nansinian and the others. "By the way, Mr. Nan, if it's convenient, could you provide my colleagues with a copy of your home security footage. The main reason Officer Wang hadn't initially believed Wei Yue was quite simple. Nansinian's home was outfitted with multiple high-tech cameras, extending even into the master bedroom. Only the bathroom remained a private zone, under such rigorous airtight surveillance. How could a literal human being remain hidden? If there had been even a hint of movement, the smart sensors would have triggered an instant alert, right? But looking at the man caught red-handed, Officer Wang felt like his professional pride had taken a massive hit. However, he quickly realized that if someone was hiding, without triggering the motion sensors, it meant the security system had almost certainly been tampered with. Nansinian's thoughts were racing along the same track. Actually, he hadn't originally installed cameras in his bedroom. He spent nearly a dozen hours, every single day performing in front of lenses. Unless absolutely necessary, he didn't want to come home, just to face even more invasive cameras, even if there was no one watching on the other side. But once he sensed something was horribly wrong, he had finally succumbed and hired professionals to install them. Yet even that proved utterly useless. Looking at the situation now, it's highly probable that this creep was the one tampering with them. The stalker's confession made Officer Wang's mouth twitch in annoyance, and he signaled his colleagues with a sharp wave. One of them grabbed a nearby tablecloth and gagged the man, effectively silencing his delusions. Finally, the world was quiet. Mr. Wei, we truly owe you one this time. As Officer Wang led the suspect away, Nansinian's manager, Sister Liu, stepped forward to express her profound gratitude to Wei Yue. The moment she laid eyes on the intruder, Sister Liu was paralyzed with pure shock, followed by an overwhelming wave of lingering fear. It wasn't just because of Nansinian's high-profile status. More importantly, President Nan had personally assigned her to Nansinian, with the sole purpose of ensuring his absolute safety. If Wei Yue hadn't intervened in the nick of time, given the sheer insanity of that Sasang fan, there's no telling what horrors he might have inflicted on Nansinian. Wei Yu shook his head dismissively, gesturing toward the phone screen. Sister Liu, you should be thanking Xiaonan instead. Only then did Sister Liu shift her gaze to the girl on the screen. Her features were delicate and exquisite, her skin pale and flawless, with loose strands of hair resting gracefully against her shoulders. It made my face look even smaller and more fragile. I remained there, quietly immersed in my book. The bullet chat was exploding with frantic messages, yet I stayed completely unfazed by the chaos. Even in an industry as competitive as show business, a face like this would never just fade into the crowd. Sister Liu thought she looked far too innocent. People that pure usually don't survive the cutthroat entertainment world. She took a closer look at my livestream bio, her eyes widening in sheer disbelief. So, it was really this girl. She actually heard Sinian's tortoise talking, and exposed the stalker through that Akimet. Wei Yuk nodded firmly. He glanced over at Nansinian, his expression saying, "See, I told you Xiaonan was the real deal. Now do you finally believe me?" Nansinian finally turned his full attention toward me. Previously, he had only caught a passing glimpse, never bothering to take a proper detailed look. The moment he laid eyes on me, he froze in sheer astonishment. I was a far cry from the persona he had conjured in his mind. He had assumed a hot-blooded young guy like Wei Yue would naturally be into those suggestive thirst-trap female streamers. But now he saw that not only did I radiate a pure innocent aura, but I was also earning my keep through genuine mystical talent. As for my ability to decipher the language of animals, Nansinian actually found himself accepting it quite rapidly. After all, Nansinian realized deep down that in a world this vast, nothing is truly impossible. Xiaonan, Wei Yu said as he finally unmuted his mic. I looked up, revealing a pair of crystal clear, shimmering almond eyes. Nansinian's gaze hadn't yet shifted away from the display. Consequently, it felt as if they were locking eyes through the digital veil. Nansinian was momentarily dazed by the connection. Those eyes. Fish eating, bro. Is the situation finally resolved? Cook. Yeah, it's completely settled. Exactly as you predicted. That creep was indeed lurking inside the ceiling. It's just that the crawl space was so massive. It took us quite a while to flush him out. Xiaonan, I'm sorry for hijacking your live stream. Wei Yuk noted they had been connected for over an hour. Yet I remained incredibly patient, without showing even a flicker of irritation or restlessness. It's fine. I'm just glad that person was caught. The other side of the screen remained shrouded in darkness, but I didn't mind at all. I closed my book and offered a soft smile to the camera. Wei Yue's lips instinctively curled into a gentle arc. He glanced over his shoulder, at the screen appearing momentarily transfixed. Nansinian felt a wave of confusion wash over him. He assumed he was still reeling from my supernatural powers, and didn't delve any deeper into his own thoughts. His fingertips tapped against the glass. I Love Fish has gifted the streamer 20 interstellar roses. Clusters of lush, dew-kissed crimson roses erupted across the entire screen in a digital bloom, even though it was merely a visual effect. It strangely made one feel submerged in a boundless ocean of flowers. It felt as if the very air was thick with a heavy floral fragrance. For your hard work, thanks fish eating bro. I had already grasped the sheer scale of I Love Fish's wealth, knowing he was loaded and didn't care about the cost. I didn't bother with any polite refusals. You earned every bit of it, Wei Yue replied with a tender, warm smile. Beside him, Sister Liu snapped back to reality and glanced at Wei Yue. She clicked her tongue inwardly in disapproval. The way this movie king was staring at the young girl on screen was definitely not professional. There was a clear lack of innocence in his gaze. Fortunately, Sinian had always been a paragon of virtue, never once getting entangled in scandals with female co-stars, which usually made her job as his manager a total breeze. Thinking this, Sister Liu turned her head toward Nansinian, only to find him dead staring at me through the screen. Nansinian. She realized he was fixed intensely on my digital image, his eyes flickering with a sharp light, revealing a heart that was anything but tranquil at that moment. Nansinian suddenly broke the silence, asking, "Her name is Xiaonan. Is her surname Nan?" Wei Yue blinked in surprise, noticing that I had clearly overheard the question on my end, before offering a slow, hesitant nod of affirmation. Nansinian locked eyes with mine through the display, exhaling a long, heavy breath of pent-up air, as a vortex of complex emotions swirled deep within his pupils. He had momentarily lost his usual cool composure. It was mainly because my eyes, those specific eyes, bore a hauntingly perfect resemblance to his late mother's. But it was just the eyes. The rest of my facial features shared no similarity at all. Yet even so, the very instant our gazes met through the interface, Nansinian was violently dragged back into the abyss of his memories. Memories filled with shameful agony and bitter pain, the kind he had sworn never to revisit as long as he lived. Nansinian finally averted his gaze, telling Wei Yue, "Extend my gratitude to her on my behalf. I'll transfer the funds to you later." He didn't have a personal streaming account, nor did he care to download an app specifically for me. "Got it," Wei Yue replied as I Love Fish showered the stream with 100 Cloud Realm gifts. Wei Yue spent a solid 3 minutes just tapping the screen to send them all. Once finished, Wei Yue turned to Nansinian with a smirk, asking with a face full of mock innocence, "Hey bro, Xiaonan just did you a massive life-saving favor. Tipping her this tiny amount isn't overdoing it, right?" It wasn't overdoing it at all. Each gift cost roughly 1,700 bucks. 100 of them barely scratched 200,000. If that stalker hadn't been discovered, the price he'd pay would have been far more devastating than mere cash. Nansinian gave a grunt of agreement. Wei Yu turned back to the mic. "Xiaonan, you heard him? Don't be shy about accepting it. You've truly earned every cent of this. Pulling in a clean 100,000 bucks in less than 2 hours? I finally understand the hype and why everyone and their mother wants to be a streamer. It's like having a literal money printing press. The cash just flows in nonstop. Well, huge thanks to Fish Eating Bro and his generous friend." I flashed a brilliant, dazzling smile. In just 48 hours, I went from having mere pocket change to being a total rich girl. How could I not be over the moon? Life is finally starting to look up. Wei Yu chuckled and replied, "Don't mention it. I'm officially numb to this flex." Didn't even get to finish the tea before Mr. Moneybags flexed on us. RT, same here. Rich people really do have their own numb reality. The drama wasn't even over when the whales started showing off. Who isn't feeling broke right now? Rich folks clearly use a different currency than us. Let's just keep being corporate slaves and grind for our measly paychecks. But for real though, fam, how much do we need to drop to actually get a one-on-one link with the streamer? Even if the drama this time wasn't a full meal, it definitely proved one major thing. I can actually decode animal language. Now, every viewer with a pet at home was starting to get restless with excitement. Who wouldn't want to know what their fur baby thinks of them, or what's going through their little heads during those quiet moments? I picked out a few comments to answer. There's no steep entry fee here. You just need to light up the fan badge to qualify. Not everyone is a whale like Fish Eating Bro, capable of dropping massive donations on a whim. Some people are out here penny pinching, feeding their pets better gourmet meals than they eat themselves. A badge only costs 10 coins, that's just $1. It's a price almost anyone can comfortably afford. She's so real for this, I'm literally sobbing. Connection request sent. Praying I get picked, don't let me down. In her heart, I'm actually on the same level as a whale. Based on that alone, I've decided to be a ride or die fan for Xiaonan until the world ends and the seas dry up. Alright, chill out. Save the soap opera drama for someone else. As soon as I said that, the queue for connection requests exploded instantly. The waiting list was endless, scrolling down into infinity. Alright, Xiaonan, I'll sign off for now, despite his reluctance. Wei Yu didn't want to interfere with my professional grind. I tilted my head with a bright smile. "Sure thing, Fish Eating Bro. If anything comes up, feel free to reach out anytime." "Will do." Wei Yu ended the call and turned toward Nansinian. "Sinian Ji, if you're all good here, I'm gonna head out." He was cradling Yudan with one arm, while clutching his phone with the other. His limbs were starting to go completely numb. After all, Yudan's weight was definitely no joke. Looking at it this way, maybe Yudan eating less wasn't so bad. It could pass as a weight loss journey. This thought seemed to trigger a sudden realization for Wei Yue. He glanced down at his phone screen, then looked back at the chunky Yudan in his arms. Sensing his owner's shifting mood, Yudan tilted his little head and let out a soft meow. Good boy. I'll reward you with a cat treat when we get back. A glimmer of pure delight flashed in Wei Yue's eyes. He had almost forgotten. The whole reason he connected with Xiaonan initially was to ask why Yudan had lost his appetite. But with all the drama surrounding Xinyanji exploding, that specific goal had completely slipped his mind. Doesn't that mean he officially has yet another perfectly valid excuse to link up with Xiaonan again? Meow, I need to lose weight. No treats allowed. Wei Yu mistook Yudan's protest for pure excitement. With a beaming smile on his face, he turned and stepped into the elevator. Nan Xinyan, who hadn't even found a gap to speak, waited until the elevator doors were almost sealed, before suddenly blurting out, "Hey, send me the link to her live stream later." In that fleeting heartbeat, he had a sudden drastic change of heart, Nan Xinyan thought to himself, even though those memories were agonizingly painful. It was like drinking poison to quench a fatal thirst. He hadn't seen his parents in his dreams for a long time. Wei Yu gave a nonchalant mumble in response. Oh, Wei Yue departed, leaving only Nan Xinyan and Sister Liu behind, to face the absolute wreckage of the apartment. I'll call the cleaning crew and contractors immediately, Mr. Nan for the time being. You should probably stay, Sister Liu fished her phone out of her bag. But before she could utter another word, Nan Xinyan cut her off with a sharp intervention. That won't be necessary, Liu Jie. I'll just crash at Wei Yue's place. Sister Liu's face was a complete map of confusion. Wait, does Wei Yue even know about this decision? Nan Xinyan had clearly already made up his mind. He strode back into the wrecked apartment, emerging with his tortoise, its tank, and a bag of feed. As for his wardrobe and personal effects, the image of that stalker in his stolen underwear flashed in his mind, and the goosebumps Nan Xinyan had just managed to calm erupted across his skin once again. Liu Jie, get rid of everything in that closet. Burn it, toss it, or donate it, I don't care. Just handle it for me, please. Liu Jie was on the exact same wavelength as him. The mere thought of this place made her skin crawl now. She nodded firmly. Understood. Nan Xinyan gave a curt hum of acknowledgement, clutching his tortoise and its entire world in his arms, as he stepped back into the elevator. Moments later, he was standing at Wei Yue's front door, expertly punching in the security code to unlock it. Compared to his own guarded nature, Wei Yu was far more trusting and straightforward. He had shared his passcode, and seen him enter with practiced ease. In contrast to his usual hypervigilance, Wei Yue was surprisingly naive, having handed his door code to Nan Xinyan long ago. Though Nan Xinyan had never actually used it until now, he pushed the door open, entered, and clicked it shut. After habitually swapping into indoor slippers, Nan Xinyan set the tortoise tank down on the table, only to spot Wei Yue lounging on the sofa. Wei Yu was cradling Yudan in his lap, absent-mindedly stroking the cat's thick fur. Surprisingly, the phone that was usually glued to his hand was lying face down on the coffee table. Nan Xinyan felt a flicker of surprise. Why aren't you watching the stream anymore? Did you lose interest that quickly? Oh, Xiaonan ended her broadcast. Was she live for that long? She signed off pretty fast. Nan Xinyan took a seat beside Wei Yue. Reaching out to ruffle Yudan's soft head, it felt great. Definitely a much better texture than a scaly tortoise head. No, she had actually just started her broadcast when we connected. Wei Yue looked like he had just had his very soul sucked out, as he slumped there. So why did she end the stream so early? Nan Xinyan arched an eyebrow, if he recalled correctly. The live viewer count in my broadcast room was hovering around 30 or 40,000 people. For a relatively small-time streamer, with fewer than 30,000 followers, that was an incredible amount of traffic to walk away from. To just drop it like that was unheard of. Yeah, like, Xiaonan mentioned she had some other work to handle urgently. Realizing I had to juggle 2 different jobs, Wei Yu felt a sudden pang of sympathy for me. He finally understood exactly how his own diehard fans felt when they worried about his schedule. The girl is certainly a hard worker, Nan Xinyan remarked coolly, glancing at Wei Yue's dramatic expression, before inevitably rolling his eyes. Enough, she's going to work not into battle. Get moving. Get ready, you're accompanying me somewhere. Wei Yue looked up blankly, to the police station. A cold, sharp glint flashed in Nan Xinyan's soulful eyes. I assume Officer Wang has already managed to squeeze some answers out of that pathetic excuse for a man. After suffering such a massive violation of his privacy, he absolutely had to uncover the truth of how that freak had managed to infiltrate and hide in his home. On the other side of town, just as I severed the connection with Wei Yue, I received an incoming message from Nan Punyan. It was just a single concise sentence, case update. Come to the station. I blinked in surprise. After I returned, my boyfriend had even requested a copy of my university class schedule, trying his best not to disturb me during my studies. I just didn't expect that after signing the contract last night. There would be work waiting for me so soon. Fortunately, I had faced plenty of high-pressure situations in my past life, so I adjusted my mindset instantly. apologizing profusely. I explained the situation to my livestream audience, dropped a lucky bag for them, and signed off. While streaming was incredibly lucrative, a special consultant role had the potential for a permanent government position. I knew exactly which one held more weight. Changing into casual clothes, I headed toward the campus gate. While I was busy changing, 2 more notifications suddenly popped up on my phone, both of them from Shu Yuanli. He mentioned his place was right near Hangzhou University, offering to swing by and pick me up on his way. Thinking fast, I decisively accepted his offer. Hey, it saves me a chunk of change on taxi fare. By the time I reached the south gate, Su Yanli hadn't arrived yet, so I just loitered by the curb to wait for him. Nan Shu! Suddenly a voice called out from behind me. I spun around and froze. Oh, Professor Wu! It really is you. I thought I'd mistaken you for someone else. The man approaching was Professor Wu Lin from my elective course. Did you just finish class, Professor? I glanced at the stack of textbooks tucked under his arm. I just borrowed some materials from the reading room, planning to drop them off at an old classmate's place. Who knew I'd run into you here? Wu Lin actually favored me quite a bit as a student. He has a sea of students under him, and even the names of those in his own major slip his mind every now and then, let alone students from a random elective. He believes I have a natural instinct for forensic medicine. It's just a shame he lacks the administrative power to bypass the rules and transfer me to the forensics department. A natural-born forensic prodigy, but alas, he didn't have the authority to grant me an exception and move me to his department. Yeah, Professor Wu. Wait, are you not teaching our next session? I recalled what Teng Yuan had mentioned about a new teaching assistant arriving to take over the lectures for a while. Well, I have to undergo a minor surgery the week after next. It's honestly nothing to worry about. But my wife is making a huge mountain out of a molehill. It's only for a month though. I should be back to teach you all by next month. Wu Lin sighed. The missus is just concerned about your well-being, Professor. If you don't mind me asking what's been bothering you. I inquired with genuine concern. Wu Lin chuckled. Just appendicitis. I'm just terrified of a sudden acute attack. So I figured I'd just have the thing sliced out. That is indeed a routine procedure. Nanshu nodded. By the way, aren't classes over for today? What brings you all the way to the medical school? Wu Lin suddenly realized and asked curiously. I recall this young lady is a senior, and aside from my specific elective, she really shouldn't have any classes left. I've got some business to attend to, and a friend is actually on his way to pick me up. I offered a vague, polite response, with a gentle smile. Wu Lin nodded in understanding. But just as he was about to speak again, a sleek black Audi glided to a halt right before us. The driver's side window rolled down, revealing a young man with skin paler than most, and a strikingly refined, gentle profile. Xiaoxu, I was just about to say my goodbyes, when I heard Wu Lin's voice erupt in pure delight. Shu Yuanli glanced toward me, before pushing the door open to exit the car. He greeted Wu Lin with professional courtesy. Professor Wu, I didn't expect to run into you like this. I was actually planning to pay you a visit next month. Wu Lin looked at Shu Yuanli, his eyes sparkling with a fervent intensity. The exact same look I give my current bank balance. It was a mix of heated passion and pure joy. Professor Wu, you flatter me. Shu Yuanli replied, distant yet impeccably polite. Flattery has nothing to do with it. Like, how many times have I tried to recruit you, kid? I've been dying for you to teach at Hangzhou University, but you consistently turn me down. Since the mountain won't come to me, I suppose I have no choice but to go to the mountain. It was blatantly obvious that Professor Wu and Shu Yuanli were very well acquainted. Since the mountain won't come to me, I suppose I have no choice but to go to the mountain. He clearly knew that. Zhu Yuanli had always possessed this detached, cool temperament. He didn't take offense. On the contrary, if Shu Yuanli ever showed too much emotion, he'd probably start worrying that the kid had a major screw loose in his head. Professor Wu, you know how it is. The police force is incredibly swamped. I truly can't spare the time. Shu Yuanli lowered his gaze, his voice laced with helplessness. I know you're busy. Oh, it's just an honorary guest lecturer position. Just a few appearances throughout the semester to give the students a little insight into the field. Wu Lin was absolutely relentless. He possessed a defining trait that was both his greatest strength and his most glaring weakness. He simply couldn't walk away from a true genius, and Shu Yuanli was the most naturally gifted forensic pathologist Wu Lin had ever encountered. Ever since he learned Shu Yuanli had returned to Hangzhou, he'd been scheming to lure the young man back, to mentor the next generation of students. Unfortunately, this kid was incredibly stubborn, refusing to budge no matter how much he was coaxed. Whenever the topic arose, he'd just claim he was swamped. But today, the professor finally caught him red-handed. There was no way Wu Lin was letting Shu Yuanli off the hook easily. Shu Yuanli wore a look of pure exasperation. Professor Wu, I really do have urgent matters to attend to today. What kind of urgent matters could you possibly have? Aren't you supposed to be on your day off today? In his relentless pursuit, Wu Lin had gone as far as obtaining Shu Yuanli's duty schedule and memorizing every single detail of it. Shu Yuanli didn't bother offering an explanation. Instead, he looked past Wu Lin, addressing me as I stood behind the professor. Nan Shu? Wulin's eyes nearly popped out of his head in shock. Nan Shu meeting Wulin's incredulous stare. I could only muster a very awkward smile. I had a nagging feeling that Professor Wu was catastrophically misinterpreting things. Wait, you two actually know each other? Wulin looked back and forth between me, and Shu Yunli, his head spinning. Then, as if a light bulb had suddenly switched on, his expression shifted to one of complete realization. It all makes sense now, no wonder. Professor Wu, I'm actually here to pick up Nan Shu today. Xu Yuanli, as usual, only told half the story. I was speechless, seriously. Was it really necessary to be so cryptic at a time like this? And are we even that close? We're literally just colleagues. Under Wu Lin's increasingly suspicious and startled gaze, there was absolutely no reason to leave the rest unsaid. Since when were we so tight? We're just coworkers enduring Wu Lin's mounting shock. I nodded. Professor Wu, my ride is here. So I guess we'll be heading off now. Wu Lin nodded vigorously, his face practically screaming, yeah, I totally get it. Right. Go on and get to work. Don't let me keep you too. With that, he beamed a warm fatherly smile, his gaze toward me softening considerably. It wasn't the look of a professor watching a student, but rather an elder doting on a younger relative. In my past life, I was a total workaholic, grinding like a dog with zero time for romance, but I've seen enough to know how this goes. I'm positive Professor Wu has completely misread the room. The worst part is, I can't even explain my professional link to Shu Yuanli, because if I started explaining that, it would definitely take a lot more than just a few words. Forget it. I resigned myself to fate and opened the back door. But before I could even slide inside, Shu Yuanli suddenly spoke up. Nana Shu sat in the front. After dropping that, he didn't look at me, but turned his attention back to Wu Lin. Well, Professor, Nanshu and I will be taking our leave now. We'll treat you and your wife to dinner sometime soon. Excellent. Why Wu Lin's grin was so wide it nearly reached his ears. It seemed like excellent was the only word left in his vocabulary. Xu Yuanli got into the driver's seat, even after the car vanished from Wu Lin's sight. That massive smirk didn't fade for a second. What a stunning couple, truly a match made in heaven. So, little Xu is finally in the dating game. And since his girlfriend is his own student, Wu Lin felt a surge of immense pride. He couldn't wait to brag about this to those other old geezers. As for Xu Yuanli's potential teaching gig, Wu Lin wasn't worried in the slightest anymore. Since his girl is still under his tutelage, little Xu joining the faculty is just a matter of time. Wu Lin turned away in high spirits. He was just about to head off, when someone called out from behind him, Professor Wu. Wu Lin came to a halt. He was just about to leave. When he heard that familiar cry of Professor Wu, Wu Lin paused in his tracks, turning to see a young woman in her early 20s. She was clutching a thick stack of teaching materials, jogging toward him from the medical school entrance. Xiaozuo. Wu Lin's smile dimmed slightly. Professor Wu, regarding the substitute lecture this Saturday, I have a few questions I'd love to ask you. I was originally heading to your office, but I never expected to run into you right here. The girl was dressed in sharp professional attire, wearing a mask of light makeup. She gave off that classic kid wearing adult clothes vibe, trying way too hard to project a mature persona. If Professor Wu remembered correctly, this girl was roughly the same age as me, by some weird twist of fate. Her surname was also Nan Nan Wan, a biology graduate from the Capital University of Technology. With a transcript full of straight A's, she was definitely a promising young talent on paper. However, under Hangzhou University's standard recruitment criteria and grueling hiring process, her chances of getting in would have been slim to none, let alone walking straight into a permanent assistant professor role. Professor Wu had caught wind that Nan Wan's father was the big shot chairman of the Hangzhou non-electrical industry. Once you connect the dots, anyone with eyes can see exactly what was going on. Wu Lin didn't necessarily have a beef with Nan Wan. He just fundamentally despised the school, shoving people into his department without his consent. Sure, he'd perform the basic duties of mentoring a rookie, but as for genuine care or hands-on expert guidance, Wu Lin couldn't bring himself to cross that mental hurdle. What's the issue? Let's discuss it in the office. I was heading back that way anyway. His smile was neither warm nor overly cold, but compared to the radiant grin he just flashed, it was like a completely different person. Nan Wan was well aware that Professor Wu didn't like her, and she knew her entry was paved by the Nan family's heavy-hitting influence, but she believed in her own elite capabilities. At the very least, she felt superior to someone like me, who stole her identity and only got into Hangzhou University because the Nan family donated a laboratory building. Understood, Professor, Nan Wan chirped with a sugary smile. She was confident that her sheer brilliance would eventually force Professor Wu to acknowledge her. As the two of them strolled toward the main campus, Nan Wan asked with feigned nonchalance, Professor Wu, was that a senior you were chatting with just now? She had heard rumors from the other faculty members that Professor Wu was obsessed with a certain brilliant graduate, supposedly only when facing that specific senior. Did Professor Wu ever show such unbridled enthusiasm? Indeed, It's quite rare to cross paths with him. At the mention of Shu Yuanli, Wulin's lips curled into a smug smile once again. Having mentored a once-in-a-generation genius like Shu Yuanli was his ultimate point of pride. Nanwan pressed further. Was that lady beside him a senior? Nope, that was actually Little Shu's girlfriend. Oh, is that so? Nanwan let out a subtle, imperceptible sigh of relief. It seemed she had simply misidentified the girl. Only the silhouette looked vaguely similar, that's all. Nanwan knew the reality of the situation. Ever since I was kicked out of the Nan family, I'd been rotting at school. The Nans had completely cut off my financial lifeline. And when I was exiled from the manor, I didn't manage to take a single valuable item with me. Right now, I'm likely struggling just to put food on the table. There's no way I could be the girlfriend of a genius senior. A man as legendary as him could never have feelings for a loser like me, right? Nanwan flashed a sweet, satisfied smile and followed silently behind Wulin without another word. On the other side of town, Su Yuanli led me straight into the high-stakes briefing room. The moment I stepped inside, the entire team froze in shock.